Elaine Fallon stares us down with a gaze of pure steel, masking her expression behind a dark, elegant fan. She insists her bloodthirsty hunt for power was all for love, believing that status and riches were the only way to protect the Valen's name. To secure her eldest son's future, she ruthlessly bribed, blackmailed, and crushed anyone standing in his way. She twisted the prince's heart like a puppet, forcing a royal engagement to tie her daughter to the throne. She bled the family dry to buy her second son the most elite training from the world's greatest blade masters. She pulled every string at her old academy to crown her daughter as the supreme head of the Magic Academy. Suddenly, Lily shatters the memory, leveling her staff at Elaine and screaming for her to finally surrender this twisted love. Lily drops a bombshell. Their father and brothers have already been executed, and now Elaine must face her sins. Surrounded by the roaring flames of their crumbling estate, Lily declares they are the only survivors left in this nightmare. Terrified and desperate, Elaine begs Lily to flee, certain that their combined magic and influence can still save them. Lily rejects the offer, refusing to ignore the unforgivable sin of her family's treason against the throne. Accepting their dark fate, she insists they must vanish forever to pay for their horrific crimes. Lily bids her mother a final farewell, raising her staff with a chilling promise that the end will be painless. Elaine screams in pure terror as Lily vows to follow her mother into the afterlife the moment the deed is done. Paralyzed by fear, Elaine begs for mercy as the deadly magical execution begins to glow. Lily unleashes the Theo Malazzo spell, and a blinding flash of light shatters Elaine's entire world. Elaine Fallon's very soul fractures and dissolves into nothingness, ending her existence in an instant. Suddenly, she snaps awake to the agonizing pain of labor, with midwives screaming at her to push. The sound of a baby's cry fills the room, leaving her dazed and wondering if she's actually having a fifth child. As the newborn wails, a shocking realization hits her. This isn't a new life, she's been sent back to the past. Elaine jolts awake in a daze, staring down at the tiny infant in her arms while her mind races to make sense of the world. Pure shock hits her like a lightning bolt when she catches her reflection and realizes she's back in her 20-year-old body. The room explodes into a frenzy of cheers as the family heralds the birth of the first son and the true heir to their bloodline. Tuning out the gossiping hags, she locks eyes with her youthful husband and realizes she's been thrown 30 years into the past. A cold shiver races down her spine as every detail of the future she just escaped floods back into her mind. She vividly recalls the golden era where her family's power reached its peak, and she raised children of unmatched strength. In her previous life, she was a master of the shadows, weaving a deadly web of schemes to seize ultimate control. But the nightmare still haunts her. The moment the House of Fallons collapsed into total ruin exactly 30 years later. As Clement catches her blushing, she makes a silent, ironclad vow that she will never let this tragedy repeat itself. Clutching her son to her chest, she names him Seekheart, bestowing upon him the exact same name he carried in her past life. She's terrified. Her hesitation made her look weak, but she finally doubles down on the name. Sieg. Clement gives her a massive smile, telling her that Sieg is the absolute perfect name for their son. He gets a little bashful, admitting it feels like a lifetime since they just talked like a normal couple. Elaine is suddenly crushed by guilt, remembering how she cruelly rejected his love until the very end of her previous life. Comparing that icy past to this new warmth, she realizes that letting him help name the baby was the best choice she could have made. A servant interrupts with urgent work, but Clement immediately takes the heat for sneaking out of his office just to see her. Elaine looks at her life as a duchess, realizing she's been blessed with incredible wealth, status, and fame. With a new fire in her heart, she decides she's going to give her husband the world in return for his devotion. She swears a silent, ironclad oath that she will make everything right this time around. Her inner thoughts reveal the chilling truth. She's doing this for survival, because she refuses to let her daughter Lily murder her again. Elaine puts her magic to the test, fueled by 30 years of future memories that make even the impossible look easy. She discovers her power is still at its absolute peak, leaving her butler speechless as she fires off spells without saying a single word. She finds her husband drowning in a mountain of work and immediately starts plotting out future inventions to save the day. Clement groans over the endless paperwork, revealing that wild beasts are tearing through the crops and devastating the entire region. Elaine jumps in to offer her expert help, and despite Clement's doubts, she refuses to sit back while the harvest is at risk. Deep down, she knows these aren't just animals. Her future memories tell her that monsters are the real threat. Clement isn't buying it, arguing that it's way too early for monster season and there haven't been any sightings. To rewrite her destiny, Elaine realizes she must surpass Lily's power or face a brutal death at her own daughter's hands once again. She decides the only way to survive is to head to the front lines and sharpen her skills in real life-or-death combat. After inventing a revolutionary milk warmer, she comforts her crying infant and prepares to take her first massive step toward changing the future. Memories of her desperate run for survival flash before her eyes, but she reassures Walter that this rough journey is nothing she can't handle. She feels terrible for dragging Walter out of his peaceful retirement, but he shuts down her apology instantly. With a warm, loyal smile, the old butler declares that there's no greater honor than serving her on this mission. Walter is itching for a chance to prove his worth, but Elaine realizes the mangled road means the disaster is way worse than they feared. She leaps from the carriage with iron resolve, declaring that uncovering the truth behind this chaos is exactly why they're here. A local scout takes one look at them and groans, disgusted that their saviors are just a noble lady and a fragile old man. He clicks his tongue in contempt, mocking her by saying there's nothing for a pampered lady to see in this wasteland. Elaine brushes off his insults and inspects the earth, realizing the soil is so rich she'd love to claim it for her own. The scout laughs at her gardening hobby, but she's haunted by a dark secret. Her last garden was a factory for illegal plants. She swears to do whatever it takes to help, promising the skeptic that the Duke would never abandon his people to die. Elaine stares at the wild, overgrown vines, whispering that this peaceful view is hiding something sinister. The crew finally reaches their goal, standing before the haunting ruins of Syria Village deep in the Fallen's territory. Walter blames wild animals for the carnage, but Elaine snaps back that the truth is way more horrifying than she ever imagined. A local hunter gets right in her face, barking that a pampered lady couldn't possibly know more than a man who's seen nothing unusual. Elaine looks right through him, haunted by the dark knowledge that this entire village is destined to crumble into ash. She shudders as she remembers the real threat. A massive, bloodthirsty army of monsters is coming to wipe them out. In her previous life, everyone was blind to the danger until the knights arrived to find nothing but a graveyard. She curses her past self for being a shut-in, realizing she doesn't know exactly which monster is leading this slaughter. She points everyone toward the ravaged fields, demanding they look closer at the bizarre way the crops were torn apart. The hunter insists it's just forest deer, but Elaine shuts him down, arguing that deer would never trample the land with such mindless brutality. The village chief bursts in and slams the hunter's head down, begging for forgiveness for disturbing their high-ranking guest. Elaine watches as the chief tears into the hunter and the girl, screaming that their behavior could get everyone's taxes raised. Activating her sinister charm skill, Elaine flashes a sweet smile and asks little Ruka for a private moment alone. Then comes the ultimate villain move, bribery, as she hands the kid a candy and tells her to ignore the shouting adults. The hunter screams at Ruka to drop the candy, but it's too late. Elaine's promise of more treats has the girl completely hooked. Elaine asks Ruka about finding any demon squirrel tails, leaving the chief baffled since the local boys haven't seen a thing in the fields. The hunter just sighs at the chief's cluelessness, mocking the city slicker for knowing absolutely nothing about the local beasts. He reveals that demon squirrels actually rip off their own tails to escape danger, leaving them behind as trophies for the village kids. Walter and the hunter realize that since no tails were found, their target is far too smart to be a simple squirrel or a deer. With all the pieces of the puzzle finally together, Elaine drops a bombshell. They are definitely being hunted by monsters. Gast stares in total shock at the filthy mess before him, barely able to believe this disheveled woman is actually the Duchess. He recoils in pure disgust at the stench of fertilizer, but Elaine just keeps her cool, dryly pointing out that her messy state proves exactly who she is. She explains that this disgusting sludge is a brilliant tactical move to mask their scent from monsters with a deadly sense of smell. Gast is still terrified of their cunning enemy, but Elaine calms him down, reminding him that while things look grim, they aren't fighting a dragon yet. Tapping into 50 years of battle-hardened memories, she breaks down the threat and decides to simplify her strategy against these forest beasts. She quickly deduces that their enemy isn't acting alone. They're a species that moves in perfectly coordinated packs. The terrifying truth finally clicks. They're being hunted by a horde of weapon-wielding forest goblins. Gast spots a scout and prepares to strike, but Elaine stops him cold, choosing to let the creature lead them straight to the main army. The hunter doubts they can track anything in the pitch-black night, but Elaine confidently declares that she and Walter are more than up for the challenge. As they reach the lookout, Gast's face turns ghostly pale as he whispers the terrifying truth. They are in serious trouble. A massive fortress looms below them, crawling with a literal sea of goblins. Gast panics and begs them to retreat and warn the village, but Elaine coolly declares they can wipe out this entire army themselves. She turns to her butler with a razor-sharp gaze, asking Walter if he's ready for the bloodbath. The loyal servant gives a slight bow, stating he's ready to strike the very second she gives the word. Walter suddenly drops the dazed hunter and rockets forward, leaving Gast screaming in total confusion. Moving with blinding speed, the elderly butler obliterates a goblin in midair, leaving Gast absolutely floored by his power. A hidden enemy lunges out for a sneak attack, forcing Walter to roar a warning to his lady. She reacts in a heartbeat, instantly chanting the devastating spell, Ignis Globus! As the magic erupts, she tells Walter she's backing him up with her lethal intermediate spells. The duo launches a perfect synchronized assault, tearing through the enemy ranks with a storm of blades and fire. The headband-wearing observer is shaking in his boots, drenched in sweat as he realizes these people are absolute maniacs. Staring at the mountain of goblin corpses, the butler praises her insane mana control, prompting her to reveal she's been training alone for 30 years and is dying to learn from these warriors. She's not just hungry for their magic, she's demanding they teach her their deadly close-quarters combat skills. The butler is stunned, questioning why a noblewoman with such overwhelming power would ever need to push herself this far. With the village's food still in danger, she admits a small defeat, but decides to ignore the fact that her allies were clearly hiding their true strength. A villager finally exhales, thinking the nightmare is over. But safety is nothing more than a cruel illusion. The mage inspects the empty crates and realizes this tiny haul is a joke compared to what was stolen. The real treasure has been moved. The scout is totally confused because greedy goblins never share, making him wonder if a completely different force is behind the theft. The group realizes this level of coordination can only mean one thing. A brilliant leader is pulling the strings of every goblin faction. Looking at the sheer scale of the destruction, the lady concludes that only one terrifying creature could be behind a campaign this massive. A horrific vision flashes before them. A brutal goblin general, a monster capable of commanding a massive, bloodthirsty legion. Knowing they're in deep trouble, the group realizes they can't just sit around. They have to hunt down that leader and end this nightmare now. The mage scoffs that wiping out small camps is a waste of time, itching to unleash her deadliest spells right at the heart of the swarm. Terrified by her sudden bloodlust, the butler stammers, "Wait, you're not actually planning to take on that entire army alone, are you?" She sighs, wishing she had a reliable squad to handle this, but tells the butler to relax. She's not charging in solo yet. But just as the butler breathes a sigh of relief, a bone-chilling sound echoes from the horizon, freezing them in their tracks. Pure chaos breaks out as a massive goblin horde sprints straight for them, and they've got seconds to brace for the collision. Suddenly, the thunderous roar of galloping hooves drowns out the screams, signaling that someone else has joined the fray. Hope flares back to life as the Nao's Night Order charges in, with Lord Clement himself leading the charge to save the day. A wicked smirk plays on the lady's lips as she watches the cavalry arrive. Their timing couldn't be more perfect. The scout's heart sinks as another 1,000 goblins join the fray, bringing the total to a staggering 6,000 monsters, leaving him terrified that they don't stand a ghost of a chance. It's just him and 300 knights against a literal sea of monsters. But even with despair clawing at his throat, he steels his nerves to charge into the jaws of death. The lady gives the signal, revealing she's used her own magic to cloak their entire army, leaving the scout stunned that someone so elegant could pull off such a massive deception. She unleashes a bone-chilling chant, summoning the great spirit of fire to melt the very earth beneath their feet as raw energy begins to tear through the atmosphere. Channeling a legendary spell once used by Lily to annihilate entire armies, she calls down a celestial cauldron of fire to incinerate everything in its path. The spell explodes with apocalyptic fury, shredding the goblin ranks into nothing but a chaotic mess of fire and screams. The heavens ignite as the Gehennim May Trim spell rains down catastrophic pillars of pure energy, turning the battlefield into a literal hellscape. The scout shrieks in pure terror at the massive inferno while the butler watches in stunned silence, unable to believe someone can still wield such godlike ancient magic. Even after vaporizing a third of the enemy army, the lady is frustrated that she's still not on Lily's level, vowing to push her power even further. Drained of every drop of mana, she nearly hits the ground before Walter catches her, urging her to rest before her husband loses his mind with worry. She snaps back to her feet and brushes off the worry, declaring she's ready to move out and prepping her support magic to match the Duke's desperate rush to save his people. She screams the incantation Shahar Platortigo, bathing the knights and scout in a glowing aura that leaves them gasping at the sudden surge of power. The scout feels light as air and ready to slay 1,000 goblins as the knights smash into the enemy lines, their voices echoing with the sheer insanity of their new strength. The fodder goblins are getting absolutely shredded, but the enemy mages are holding firm, blocking the knight's path with annoying magical barriers. Suddenly, a blazing flame javelin tears through the air to shatter the enemy's defense. She barks an order at Walter to wipe those pesky goblin mages off the map immediately, and he responds with a sharp, loyal salute. She warns that this whole fight is a waste if the goblin general slips away, and the butler agrees they can't let that monster escape to start another war elsewhere. But her tactical breakdown is cut short as the entire battlefield shifts in a heartbeat. The scout whips out his bow and screams for everyone to freeze, his eyes locked onto a hidden danger no one else saw coming. An arrow slams into the barrier as the scout realizes their cover is blown. And while the lady praises his quick thinking, Gast is left burning with shame for being spotted so easily. Walter swings for the kill, but a magic barrier slams into his blade, leaving him stunned that this is no ordinary mage. The lady realizes it's a gem-boosted goblin rune knight, and screams for Walter to ditch it and hunt down the general. She locks eyes with the monster and declares that she'll be the one to wipe out every enemy in her path. "Ice javelin!" she roars, unleashing a lethal storm of frozen projectiles at her target. The goblin fights for its life, frantically trying to parry the magical barrage raining down on it. The beast crashes to the dirt as she coldly mocks it for leaving its guard wide open. It was a heroic class fighter, but it made the fatal mistake of relaxing after one dodge, and her magic doesn't miss. The scout sees the butler gasping for air and screams out, "Gramps, are you okay?" The butler confesses that was a close call, but he gives a reassuring nod that he's still in the fight. They stare in pure terror at the enemy's twisted weapon, drenched in so much blood it's sickening. She instantly recognizes the blade as a limit-breaking cursed weapon, but they don't have a second to waste on a lecture. The supercharged goblin slams that weapon down with bone-crushing force, turning the ground into a massive explosion of flying debris. Pure chaos erupts as the group dives for cover while the scout screams at the top of his lungs, desperate for a plan. Walter stays ice-cold and focused, demanding they put this monster down before it levels everything in sight. The beast unleashes another massive swing, forcing our heroes to dance through a lethal arc of steel just to stay alive. Spotting her chance, the lady fires off an earthbind spell to shackle the monster and put a dead stop to its rampage. As the beast lets out a frustrated roar, she warns the team that her spell will only hold it for a split second. Walter lunges forward with his blade drawn, shouting that a single moment is all he needs to finish this. With one surgical strike, he sends the monster's head flying and coldly declares that the battle is over. The lady absolutely terrifies the scout by grabbing the severed head, explaining it's both proof of the kill and a rare ingredient for powerful magic. Lord Clement's voice pierces the air as he desperately calls out for Elaine. He's got other messes to clean up, but he refused to leave until he saw she was safe with his own eyes. Elaine holds up the goblin general's severed head, and Clement jumps at the chance to take that grisly trophy off her hands. Knowing she can't match Lily's massive mana, Elaine vows to craft magical gear to close the gap. Her deep thoughts are shattered when little Ruka sprints over, begging Lady Elaine to accept a gift. The patrol watches in awe as the little girl marches up, determined to give the noblewoman her prize. Ruka proudly presents a demon squirrel tail, a reward the entire village hunted down just for her. Clement and the villagers drown her in praise for saving their lives, leaving Elaine totally stunned by the sudden love. She awkwardly brushes off the thanks, but her butler knows her cold face is just a mask for her massive embarrassment. Ruka gushes over her power and beauty, finally convincing Elaine to take the tail as a toy for her son, Seek. With stars in his eyes, the child looks up and declares that Elaine must be the world's greatest mom. A bittersweet smile crosses Elaine's face as she whispers a desperate prayer that he's right. The instructor steps forward, ordering them to place their hand on the crystal ball to kick off the ritual. Little baby Sieg stares around with wide, wondering eyes, letting out a tiny, confused whimper at the strange new world. Her fire affinity is off the charts, but the adults are already gossiping about Mary's test, certain her noble blood guarantees massive power. Inside the carriage, a bratty young girl throws a tantrum, screaming that she's bored and absolutely hates this bumpy ride. Suddenly, a bone-chilling sound rips through the air, shattering the peace and freezing everyone in their tracks. Pure chaos breaks out as a blood-curdling scream warns that a monster is tearing into the carriage. One man loses his mind because his mana is empty, while his partner bellows at him to trigger the magic shield, calling him a useless idiot. He fumbles with the massive, heavy device, praying this expensive junk actually works while his partner screams for him to move faster. A massive avian beast lunges, but the shield snaps into place just in time, leaving the passengers breathless with shock. Everyone stares in awe as the gadget actually tanks a direct hit of pure magic. The barrier begins to shatter, and a desperate voice screams for everyone to run before the whole thing collapses. The monster delivers a bone-shattering blow, sending the carriage spinning into a chaotic, violent blur. The carriage slams into the dirt, and inside the twisted metal, a mother desperately shields her child with her own body. With the beast finally downed, the boy looks up only to see his mother covered in wounds from protecting him. The Duke acts like saving them was just a minor chore, even as the survivors weep and thank him for snatching them from the jaws of death. One man loses it, kicking the debris and screaming at the magic tower for selling him $1 million piece of garbage. She tries to play off her bleeding wounds as a simple scratch, but the healer sees right through it and rushes to help. Touching his own scarred face, the baby realizes this pain is nothing compared to her safety, even if the guilt still stings. A vision of his father flashes by, beaming with pride as he asks Sieg if his mother isn't the most incredible woman alive. A full year after crushing the goblin army, the party readies their gear. They've finally reached their goal. Just outside the capital of Naos, they discuss how the church couldn't care less whether Sieg actually has mana or not. The Duchess claims a lack of mana might save their son from envy, but the Duke argues that raw power is an undeniable edge. Her husband challenges her, demanding to know if she really thinks it's better for the boy to be magicless. She stares him down with unwavering confidence, doubling down that her way is the only right way. Inside the Grand Cathedral, the High Priest greets the nobles and kicks off the ritual to measure the kid's mana and elemental traits. The ceremony begins as the priest tells them to rest the baby's tiny hand right on the glowing crystal ball. The priest's jaw drops as he realizes the boy's mana is top tier. He's looking at a future legendary mage. But shock fills the room when the reading reveals that despite his massive power, the kid has 0 elemental affinity. The priest drops a bombshell. Without an elemental affinity, the boy's chances of ever casting magic are practically 0. Back at the library, a servant bursts in with an urgent letter, forcing the Duke to leave his wife's side to handle the mystery. Elaine is totally obsessed with her new carriage blueprints, barely even blinking when her husband asks about her secret magic project. The Duke remembers that her invention was way too massive for one person to handle, and he notes the craftsmen are almost finished with the build. Sieghart watches the scene in shock, realizing this event is happening way earlier than it did in his past life. Seeing her laser focus, the Duke asks if he's interrupting, but she insists she was desperate for a break anyway. He gently touches her face, asking if her heart is heavy because of Sieg's devastating magic test results. She confesses her deepest fear, that her son will be defenseless against the elite mages ruling their high-stakes society. Her face turns cold as she whispers that she knows the agony of being helpless all too well, and that pain is fueling her resolve. She demands a magic shield for Sieg, and when the Duke says store-bought ones are garbage, she reveals she has a much deadlier plan. Her eyes burn with a fierce fire as she declares she'll bypass the market and build the shield herself. Sieghart is completely stunned, realizing his mother is defying the magic tower's ironclad monopoly and flipping his world upside down. Elaine exposes the magic tower as a corrupt den of evil that hoards technology for unethical research, recalling her legendary trade war against them. She reveals her master plan, designing a god-tier device and hiring rogue craftsmen to steal the tower's entire business. Back in the present, Elaine reassures her panicked husband, promising she won't start a war this time and telling him to just breathe. Alone, she scolds herself for worrying while the Duke toils away. Knowing her future memories give her a massive advantage in raising her kids, she calms down, remembering that Sieg was actually the weakest of her 4 children, so there's absolutely no reason to panic. Clutching a letter from Celine, she doubles down on her belief that every one of her children possesses world-shaking power. A nightmare strikes, dragging her into a world of fire and ash where her future self waits with a chilling, knowing smirk. A fully grown Sieghart steps through the roaring flames and addresses the woman before him as his mother. Future Elaine beams with pride, praising her son for slaughtering every single obstacle in their path. She sneers at the broken prophetess, dismissing her dire warnings as nothing more than the buzzing of an insect. Gasping through the pain, Celine begs Elaine to stop before she commits a sin she can never take back. Elaine stares down with chilling indifference, refusing to believe a prophecy that says she'll lose. Through her tears, Celine cries out, asking how Elaine could betray the king and trash the bond they once shared. A desperate voice screams at Elaine, pleading with her to wake up and remember the person she used to be. This dark Elaine erupts into a maniacal laugh, claiming she's perfectly sane while the dying woman is the one lost in a dream. She gestures to the mangled corpses of the Count's family, mocking the prophetess for failing to see their total annihilation. With a final, icy farewell, she prepares to execute Celine, branding her as the friend who turned traitor. The blade swings down, ending her best friend's life in one brutal, heartless strike. With her dying breath, Celine reaches out, desperately warning Elaine to stay far away from that cursed star. Elaine bolts upright in bed with a violent gasp, her heart hammering as the nightmare's grip finally loosens. A chilling realization hits her. She's following the exact same path that led to her total destruction in her past life. She curses her own pathetic naivety, knowing that damn prophecy was the very thing that handed her enemies their smug victory. Vowing to change her fate, she steals her resolve, right as her eyes lock onto a crumpled letter discarded on the floor. A servant's voice shatters her focus, announcing a visitor and forcing her to march toward the entrance. The maid reveals that Lady Celine Blastry has arrived, urging her mistress to prepare for the meeting immediately. Deep down, Elaine knows this woman was her closest ally, the one person who truly cared for her above all others. But her warmth turns to ice as she labels the woman with a single chilling title: prophetess. Agony sears through her mind as she remembers the truth. This friend is the very enemy she slaughtered in her previous life. Celine's face lights up as she screams her best friend's name, realizing it's been over a whole year since they last saw each other. Without wasting a single second, she sprints across the checkered floor to close the gap. The two collide in a massive, tear-jerking hug as Celine squeezes Elaine with everything she's got. Celine jokes that a squeeze this tight is usually for a husband, but her smile vanishes the moment she sees the pain in Elaine's eyes. She brushes off the rules, shouting that she'll hug her best friend whenever she wants, and claims she only showed up because her letters went unanswered. While Elaine struggles to find words, Celine rests her forehead against hers and admits the letter drama was just a little joke to break the ice. Suddenly, the air turns cold as Celine asks if Elaine truly understands the terrifying nature of her hidden power. She drops a bombshell. Her gift is the power of prophecy, a chaotic and mysterious talent that lets her see glimpses of what's to come. With tears of gratitude, she remembers how Elaine was the only person who didn't fear her curse, choosing to praise her instead of running away. She leans in close, whispering that she's been pushing this power to its limits for one very specific reason. Locking eyes with Elaine, Celine finally confesses that she's been peering into her best friend's future for a very long time. With her heart racing, Elaine demands to know the truth. Was the future Celine saw actually a happy one? Celine's playful mask completely shatters, replaced by a haunting silence as she dwells on the grim visions she's witnessed. She finally breaks the tension with a chilling whisper, describing a sinister, dark star that's been looming over Elaine's soul. Celine explains that while most people have infinite possibilities, that same cursed star has been relentlessly dragging Elaine toward a single, dark fate. But then, a miracle happened. That dark star's light suddenly flickered out this morning, signaling a massive, unexplained shift in her destiny. Celine leans in with pure desperation, admitting she sprinted over because she feared something catastrophic had triggered such a radical change. Elaine instantly connects the dots and battles with herself, wondering if she should actually reveal the truth to Celine. Remembering how their secrets turned them into bitter enemies in her past life, she realizes that this time, she must choose total honesty. Elaine grips her hands together and drops the ultimate bombshell. She has already lived this life and died once before. Celine stands there frozen, her brain short-circuiting as she lets out a stunned, confused gasp. The prophetess is paralyzed with shock, desperately trying to wrap her head around that massive bombshell. Elaine sees the same terror in Celine's eyes that she felt when she first discovered her powers, while Celine stammers that there has to be more to the story. Elaine lays out the timeline. She lived 30 years into the future, died, and then suddenly woke up a year in the past. She cold-bloodedly lists her sins, from stealing the throne and plunging the world into chaos, to ordering Celine's murder and being executed by her own daughter. Celine turns ghost white, recoiling in pure terror as she hears the gruesome details of their doomed future. Elaine stays eerily calm, looking her in the eye and confirming that every single nightmare she just described is the absolute truth. She swears to tear down destiny and avoid that blood-soaked path, leaving Celine absolutely floored by her iron will. Celine stares at her friend, realizing that the brilliant, radiant soul she once looked up to has finally returned. Elaine lays out her master plan to win over her enemies and train for survival, but first, she needs one massive favor. She leans in close with a desperate, pleading look, practically begging Celine for her help. Celine's face turns beet red as she crumbles under the charm, making Elaine realize that absolutely no one can resist that look. Down in the courtyard, a hyper-excited mage cranks up the magic shield device, earning him the reputation of a total hothead. Elaine screams, "Stone Javelin!" as she blasts a lethal spell to push the shield's limits to the absolute breaking point. The massive stone projectile slams into the barrier with bone-shattering force, making the defender grunt from the heavy impact. The barrier holds strong against the onslaught, leaving the entire crowd breathless at its legendary defensive power. Horst is blown away, realizing this device will save countless lives and let him charge into battle harder than ever before. The group realizes this tech will shatter the Magic Tower's monopoly, while Elaine questions if Horst truly trusts it to be their ultimate shield. It suddenly clicks for Horst. Is she handing this tech to House Fallens just to strip the Magic Tower of its absolute power? Elaine secretly admits she tried that exact same reckless move in her past life, and it's the very thing that led to her brutal death. She chooses the path of peace, deciding to settle things with words instead of blades to keep everyone safe. Elaine conjures a glowing magic bird to carry her orders, demanding an elite escort for her journey to the capital's legendary Magic Tower. The captain's jaw drops at the sudden orders, jokingly asking if they're starting a full-scale war as the messenger streaks into the sky. The magical bird blazes across the horizon, finally reaching the massive, intimidating spires of the Elkadrat Magic Tower. A mysterious figure snatches the construct out of the air, instantly realizing this message is meant for the Tower Master himself. Arrogant mages sneer at a hooded girl, mocking her as a worthless servant and wondering why the Master even keeps her around. These gossiping snakes whisper that Master Candelario is losing his mind, warning that his favoritism will cost him his throne. Clarice steps into the Master's inner sanctum, her heart heavy with the fear that she's the one destroying his reputation. She pulls back her hood to reveal her face, trembling as she apologizes and tightly clutches the magical messenger she recovered. Master Candelario doesn't even look up, completely buried in an experiment that's draining his mana and his time at a terrifying rate. Clarice is ready to serve, but Candelario doesn't waste a second, demanding to know if that magic pigeon in her hands is the reason she's here. When he hears the Duchess is on her way, Candelario shrugs it off, cold-bloodedly vowing to kick her to the curb if she bores him, noble blood or not. Behind his prickly exterior, Candelario can't help but think this Duchess might actually be worth his time. He's heard the wild rumors about her genius inventions, from life-saving milk warmers to those far-sight gadgets that have the entire capital losing their minds. Even with his interest piqued, he's still baffled. What could a high and mighty noble possibly want with a mage like him? Deep in the tower, Clarice grabs a quick bite, her mind racing as she tries to picture what this legendary Duchess is really like. She lets out a heavy sigh and shakes it off, knowing their lives are light years apart and she'll never truly understand a woman like that. Suddenly, her peaceful lunch is shattered as birds explode into the sky in a blind panic. Something dangerous is coming. A crushing wave of mana slams into her, and she realizes with pure horror that this isn't just some tower experiment gone wrong. She whips her head toward the entrance and screams as a tide of pure hostility charges straight for the front gates. A massive lava cannon spell obliterates the building, erupting in a violent explosion that shreds their defenses to pieces. Through the thick smoke, the guard captain draws his blade and screams in pure terror, certain they're being invaded. Standing right in the middle of the carnage she created, the Duchess looks the panicked guard in the eye and calmly explains she's only here for a chat. Rewinding a few hours, a lone carriage rattles down a jagged mountain road toward the dark, towering shadow of the Magic Tower. Inside, the young noble claims she's never felt better, even though her worried guard thinks her deadly serious face is just a bad stomachache. She remembers her childhood, and how her parents used the horror of the magic tower as a nightmare to keep her in line. Her guard gives a simple nod while she brushes her cheek, her mind spiraling into the dark, twisted legends of her past. Looking at that cursed tower, she knows those threats were real. This place is a cold, heartless factory that would sacrifice children for the sake of research. Her guard mentions rumors that the new master, Candelario, is actually reasonable, but she isn't buying it for a second. She shuts him down with a cold glare, declaring she isn't here for the current master, but for the one who will eventually seize the throne. She drops a bombshell about the tower's dark past. Candelario wasn't killed by some sickness. He was ruthlessly hunted down by the greedy and spiteful Tobias and Zorge. She exposes the cowardly hit, describing how Tobias's goons ambushed the Tower Master right when he was completely drained of mana after a grueling experiment. She scoffs at Tobias as a pathetic loser destined to rot in the upcoming war, confessing that she simply poured gasoline on the flames that brought the tower down. As their carriage pulls up, she vows to step in, knowing that if she lets those greedy vultures scavenge the tower's treasures, total ruin is inevitable. The crew steps out onto the desolate, scorched earth, sharing a heavy silence as they brace themselves for the nightmare ahead. Staring at the colossal gate, memories flood back to her, and when the captain asks for a plan, she declares that her overwhelming magic is all they need. She gestures toward a cryptic poem etched into the stone, a brutal challenge demanding any mage who dares approach to prove their absolute worth. Her ally is blown away by her wisdom as she explains that the normal way in requires solving a massive brain-melting puzzle hidden in the text. Flashing back to her previous life, she remembers how she spent hours obsessing over every detail of the riddle, convinced that her brain was the only way through. She drops to her knees before the ancient door, looking like she's about to tackle the puzzle exactly the way she did in her past life. She stops dead in her tracks, realizing with a grim smirk that trying to play by the rules was her first mistake. Ditching the spells, she obliterates the gate with pure, unadulterated brute force, declaring the riddle officially solved. A voice cackles from the darkness, confirming that showing your power meant smashing the door down was the real answer all along. A predatory glint flashes in her eyes as she grins, daring the hidden forces inside to give her their best shot. The dungeon strikes back instantly, firing a massive lava cannon to incinerate the intruder where she stands. A massive explosion of searing heat swallows the room, forcing the defenders to recoil from the blistering temperature. Through the thick smoke, a man lunges forward to shield a terrified girl, desperately checking to see if she's still alive. Tobias sneers at the pathetic attack and brushes it off like nothing, while Clarice stares in total shock at her savior. Tobias scans the wreckage for more survivors as Clarice clings to him, shaking with relief. Their eyes snap back to the entrance as the smoke clears, revealing the absolute carnage of the shattered gate. Tobias scoffs that if breaking and entering is the new greeting, these guests are doing a hell of a job looking like an invasion force. Panic grips Tobias as he realizes this isn't just a fire. It's a terrifying surge of elemental energy that spells absolute disaster. A figure steps through the embers, effortlessly controlling both fire and ice without a single chant, and casually wishes them a good day. Sensing their hostility, she mocks them, wondering if obliterating their massive gate wasn't enough to show them who's boss. Without missing a beat, she kicks the fight into high gear by launching a lethal water javelin at the stunned guards. She figures the tower wants a real test of strength, so she prepares to wipe every single defender off the map. Tobias screams at the top of his lungs for his men to raise shields as that devastating magical spear hurtles toward them. He's sure his men can tank a few magic arrows, but his confidence shatters when the air fills with the sounds of their agonizing screams. Desperate to keep her alive, Tobias orders the magicless Clarice to retreat instantly before she gets caught in the slaughter. Clarice takes off at a sprint, rushing to find reinforcements while praying that Tobias makes it out of this alive. The intruder's eyes lock onto the escaping girl, fascinated by the bizarre energy radiating from Clarice. A chilling silence grips the air as she slowly turns her deadly gaze back to the man standing in her way. She flashes a wicked smirk at Tobias, mocking him by saying he should be on his knees thanking her for letting the girl live. She analyzes Tobias, shocked that he's nothing like she expected, all while noting the girl he saved is no fighter at all. Tobias drags himself up, refusing to retreat even though he's just realized there's a new monster in town far worse than the old man. Stealing his nerves, Tobias Anzorga bellows his name and swears to crush this nightmare with every last drop of his power. He spots a tiny opening and screams, "You're wide open!" as he lunges forward in a final desperate strike. He fires off a stone spear, but his jaw drops when a magic shield snaps into existence before he can even blink. He doesn't stop there, exploding into a high-speed blur to tear through her defenses with pure, raw momentum. Horror strikes as he realizes she's predicting his every move, leaving him desperate to know who this terrifying woman actually is. He's in total denial that she can counter him, especially since this secret trump card was built for one purpose: to take down the old man. This insane technique fuses wind and lightning magic, surging through his veins to grant him godlike speed. Using that blinding velocity, he vanishes into her blind spot and launches a lethal strike straight for her skull. But before he can land the hit, she summons a massive stone wall in a flash, and Tobias realizes his body is finally hitting its breaking point. The stone walls slam shut around him, and he lets out a desperate cry as he's buried alive in a rocky tomb. She doesn't hesitate, unleashing the Giganto spell to bring a mountain of crushing force down to end this fight once and for all. A blood-curdling scream erupts from his lungs as the sheer weight of the magic begins to pulverize his bones. Silence falls over the battlefield as a massive stone prison stands tall, while she stares coldly at her handiwork. She looks through the rubble, shocked he's even alive. But Tobias snarls that there's no way he's dying in a dump like this. She warns him to quit before his own unstable technique shreds his body to pieces, but he stubbornly refuses to back down. Consumed by agony, he roars that he can't retreat now, or he'll never be able to look his fallen brothers in the eye again. He lunges for one final strike, but a wrinkled hand suddenly clamps onto his head as a booming voice commands him to stand down. Tobias freezes in shock at the old man's interference, but the elder just turns to the intruder and calmly asks the lady to end this fight. His mind reels as he realizes this old man is the legendary Tower Master, just as his dead comrades start groaning back to life. The master reveals he simply froze their mana flow, tricking the intruder into thinking they had actually kicked the bucket. He gives Tobias a nod for his hard work, but immediately scolds him, warning that he's still missing the calm focus needed to survive a real war. Shifting the mood instantly, the master offers a formal welcome, addressing the mysterious woman as Duchess Fallons. She returns the gesture with a graceful smile, telling Lord Candelario to simply call her Elaine. Candelario admits he used a magic arrow to paralyze his men's mana cores, but he's way more obsessed with the bizarre magic Elaine just unleashed. They dive into the secrets of the magic core, agreeing that hitting such a hidden, shifting target requires god-tier sensory skills. Tobias writhes on the dirt, staring at that impossible power in shock as he finally realizes which monster just crushed him. He gazes up at the woman looming over him and gasps out the chilling truth. "I should have expected nothing less, Mother." Elaine doesn't even blink at the family reunion, coldly explaining that her technique just freezes her targets in a state of total paralysis. She shuts down the sentiment and gets straight to business, revealing the real reason she stepped foot in this tower. Pulling out a tiny pendant, she reveals her new hobby of crafting magic tools and demands he take a closer look. Candelario's jaw drops when she casually admits this little trinket is the same massive magic shield that blocked those attacks. As he inspects it, he's horrified to find this tiny device packs enough mana to tank 10 of Tobias's lethal stone spears at once. Pure terror grips him, because if a tool this small and powerful ever hits the market, it would absolutely demolish the tower's reputation. He realizes with a sinking heart that the tower's own gear would become worthless trash that nobody would ever buy again. Elaine confesses that her prototype is insanely expensive to make, and a price war would just leave both sides bleeding out for pennies. Forget the rivalry. She offers a game-changing alliance to split the rights to this incredible tool. Candelario is instantly suspicious, wondering why on earth she'd surrender her winning hand like this. She reveals her master plan. She's trading the rights for the tower's massive sales empire and their top-tier production secrets. Elaine wants to flood the workshop with city artisans, but Candelario is disgusted by the thought of using such low-class workers. He rants that city smiths only produce garbage, but he quickly bites his tongue as he realizes the tide is turning. Elaine predicts that with the right funding, these independent crafters will become the tower's deadliest rivals in a decade. Candelario finally sees her brilliance. She's going to absorb the competition before they even become a threat. As she prepares to leave, Elaine demands a favorable answer, leaving Candelario struggling to process her insane proposal. She stops dead in her tracks, throwing out one last offer that she knows will seal the deal for good. The doors explode open as Tobias storms in, and while he screams at the old man, Elaine just gives him a polite, icy greeting. Tobias is paralyzed with confusion by the peaceful vibe, while Elaine wonders how this reunion became so incredibly awkward. Candelario starts roasting his subordinate, mocking him for getting absolutely wrecked by Elaine and telling him they both need to step up their game. Tobias loses his cool, face turning bright red as he desperately stammers that the rumors aren't true. When forced to face reality, Tobias finally caves, admitting he isn't shameless enough to claim victory after getting totally demolished. The Tower Master notices Tobias's massive ego has finally cracked, realizing he should have humbled the kid with a duel a long time ago. Tobias sighs and pivots to politics, asking if Candelario played nice just to keep the rival factions from going to war. He demands to know why a tower built on merit is giving special treatment to Clarice, a girl who can't even cast a single spell. Tobias clarifies he's not trying to get her expelled, but warns that the younger mages are starting to resent this massive anomaly. He insists that true fairness means every mage must be judged strictly by their power, and Candelario admits his logic is actually solid. Suddenly, the old master's face goes dark as he leans in to crush a massive flaw in Tobias's reasoning. Candelario flashes a sinister grin and drops a bombshell. Clarice isn't a student or a guest. She's a lab rat. He explains that she's a priceless specimen with a rare power he desperately needs, so she has to be treated like fragile glass. Tobias is absolutely sickened by this cold-blooded logic, but Candelario just laughs at the kid's horrified face. Fuming, Tobias barks that this isn't a sick joke, but Candelario looks him dead in the eye and says he's dead serious. The master explains that while modern magic can't touch her power, it's the missing piece for his own twisted experiments. He tosses out a fake apology, claiming people probably mistook his obsession with his subject for actual favoritism. Tobias blows his top over the lies, but the Tower Master admits he knew everyone hated her and just didn't care. Candelario calls out Tobias for being a jerk to Clarice, but the young mage refuses to back down or apologize for his iron fist. Candelario sees right through him, realizing Tobias was only mean to protect her from the other students, leaving Tobias absolutely speechless. The master suggests that if they just tell everyone she's a test subject, all that student hatred will vanish instantly. With a wicked grin, he reminds them he's always kind to his lab rats, and anyone else wanting special treatment can volunteer as his next experiment. Candelario chirps that the issue is settled, but Tobias mutters that after a threat like that, nobody's going to step up. Elaine lets out a long stretch, cutting through the bickering to ask if this little drama finally marks the end of her tour. The waking guards instantly snap at Clarice, screaming that it's all her fault Tobias suffered such a pathetic defeat. Their insults die in their throats the moment they realize these legendary intruders are standing right there, watching their every move. Tobias panics, screaming that she's from a ducal house, just as Elaine introduces herself as Elaine Fallons with a calm, polite apology. Shaking with fear at her status, the guards stammer out desperate apologies and bolt for the exit while Elaine graciously lets them go. As the dust settles and silence falls, Elaine turns her gaze toward the poor girl still shivering on the floor. Elaine realizes this is the same girl from the gate, and Clarice immediately drops into a deep bow, screaming her thanks for being saved. Face turning bright red, she stammers out her name as Clarice, completely starstruck to be standing before a real duchess. Elaine flashes a cryptic smile, whispering about the past while leaving Clarice completely in the dark. Staring at the blushing girl, Elaine is hit with a flood of memories of her own daughters back when they were still pure and innocent. She remembers how those innocent souls eventually twisted into something completely different. They traded their kindness for cold authority, ruling like ruthless empresses instead of the gentle girls they once were. Clarice breaks the silence by asking if the madam has a daughter, jolting Elaine right back to reality. Elaine's heart skips a beat as she realizes her daughter hasn't even arrived yet. She's getting her timelines all mixed up. Elaine pivots, sensing a massive surge of mana inside Clarice, and demands to know why someone this powerful would ever let themselves be bullied. Clarice hangs her head, admitting her power is wild and untamable, absolutely stunned that Elaine can see the magic swirling inside her. Overwhelmed by shame, she confesses that the tower views her as a broken, useless failure because she can't master her own gift. The realization hits Elaine like a lightning bolt. This girl's condition is a mirror image of Seek's. Elaine pauses for a second, bracing herself to reveal the shocking truth that ties her past and present lives together. Clarice leans in, eyes wide with anticipation, begging to know what happens next in this twisted tale. Elaine flashes back to the Fallen's estate, where she sacrificed herself to Candelario's experiments just to save Clarice and Sieg. She drops a bombshell, In the original timeline, Master Candelario dropped dead the second that experiment was finished. While her friend reels from the shock, Elaine vows that she'll use her knowledge to shatter that tragic fate once and for all. She can't help but admire the old man's genius, stunned that he mastered such complex research without any help. She explains that once Candelario died, the fallen family swooped in and seized every scrap of his secret research. Instead of sharing his findings, she hoarded the technology for her own family and perfected the theory in secret. This secrecy let Sieg master a hidden power so overwhelming that no enemy on earth could stand against him. Her face suddenly turns cold as she admits that even with that godlike power, her entire family was still brutally slaughtered. Clarice calls the move cold-blooded, and Elaine admits that since they lost, her master plan was far from perfect. Elaine is fired up to team up with Master Candelario and drop a game-changing upgrade to their tech, swearing she'll rewrite history itself. Her schedule is absolute chaos, and even though the Win partnership is booming, she hasn't stepped foot in her own territory for a whole month. Right in the middle of tea, a bolt of lightning hits her, and she points a finger in the air, shouting that she just remembered something huge. She looks at Celine with a smirk, teasing that Aaron Wins must have been absolutely floored when their secret connection finally came to light. Celine nods, admitting she'd kept her ties to the Wen's trading company buried so deep that no one saw it coming. She confesses that in her past life, the true power of that bond didn't even click until she was drawing her very last breath. Elaine flashes a knowing grin, impressed that Celine was way better at playing her cards close to her chest than she ever imagined. The Wen's trading company is a merchant titan led by Aaron Wens, with a reach that stretches across borders and into foreign lands. In her previous life, this company used Celine's visions to skyrocket in power, becoming a nightmare enemy that backed her rival until the very end. Right now, they're just a mid-sized shop in the capital, posing absolutely zero threat to anyone. Elaine drops a bombshell master plan: fuse their massive trade routes with the Magic Tower's elite manufacturing power. By throwing her revolutionary shield designs into the mix, they'll flood the market with cheap gear and rake in a mountain of gold. She strikes a power pose, declaring this alliance will save the Magic Tower and, more importantly, keep Lily from murdering her. Suddenly, she checks the clock and loses it, slamming the meeting shut because she's got a bolt right now. She sprints out the door with a frantic apology, leaving Celine stunned by the Duchess's insane schedule. But as she hits the hallway, she stops dead. There's Clement, cradling little baby Sieg in his arms. She's shocked to see them, but Clement explains the king summoned him, and he just couldn't leave the kid behind. He reveals they rigged the carriage with her genius shock-absorbing tech, making the long trip a total breeze for little Zeke. Elaine melts over her baby, begging for forgiveness, but Clement promises that Sieg knows his mama is out there doing big things. Clemens beams with pride, telling Elaine her genius invention made their son's carriage ride smooth as silk. Baby Sieg grabs his mother's finger in a tiny grip, and Elaine promises they'll catch up the moment she finishes her high-stakes errand. As they set off, Clement reveals the king's urgent command. Monsters are overrunning the free cities, and his ducal army is being deployed to the front lines. Fearing for his men's lives, Clement asks Elaine to gear up the troops with her new magic shields to keep casualties at zero. He starts poking fun at her past, reminding her that she was actually pretty clumsy with defensive magic back in their academy days. Elaine is shocked he still remembers those little moments, while Clemens just chuckles at the sweet memory. He teases that he knows her weaknesses better than anyone, since he was the one constantly shattering her shields during their mock duels. With a tender look in his eyes, Clement tells her how incredibly grateful he is to have such a brilliant and powerful wife. Their romantic moment is cut short when they spot Celine and Tobias together, and Clement happily notes just how well the two are hitting it off. Later at the Magic Tower, Elaine watches the workers fix the main gate, absolutely stunned by the sheer chaos she caused herself. Tobias huddles in the wreckage, fuming that he's stuck on janitor duty while shooting daggers at the woman who caused this disaster. He rants that finding any salvageable pieces is a total nightmare because she didn't just break the gate, she pulverized it into dust. Elaine chirps as she spots a shard, tossing out a casual apology for her explosive entrance as if it were no big deal. Deep in the ruins, Clarice is putting in the work, straining every muscle to haul away massive boulders and help with the rebuild. Tobias does a double take, stunned to see the girl actually rolling up her sleeves to help with this grueling labor. He curses the Tower Master's ridiculous excuse that manual labor is good training, knowing full well they're just dumping an impossible job on their subordinates. Giving in to his fate, Tobias explains they can't just build a new gate. The original shards still pulse with magic, so they have to save every single piece. This brutal mission requires them to hunt down every fragment, forge new parts, and solve a massive magical jigsaw puzzle. With a heavy sigh, Tobias accepts the grind and barks orders for the team to start hunting down every last scrap of the gate. The crew fans out through the wreckage, eyes peeled for the faint glow of enchanted stone hidden beneath the dust. Clarice timidly points to a sharp fragment at Tobias's feet, desperate to be useful to the man who saved her. Even though he's still grumbling about her tagging along, Tobias tries to stay focused on the job, but his spirit completely breaks as he stares up at an endless, impossible mountain of debris. He lets out a soul-crushing groan, clutching a jagged stone and screaming at the sky. Is he seriously expected to inspect every single piece by hand? His crew rushes in to lift his spirits, begging him not to overwork himself as they trudge through the wreckage to lend a hand. Suddenly, a loud crash echoes as a massive boulder is hoisted into the air by two tiny, trembling hands. Clarice tosses the heavy slab aside like it's nothing to reveal a hidden fragment, leaving Tobias and the crew absolutely speechless at her insane strength. The moment they finish, Elaine pops up with a bright smile to thank them, before immediately dragging the starving mages to the next grueling worksite. Deep inside the tower, Master Candelario scours the research papers, his eyes bulging as he realizes the world-shaking truth hidden in the data. He sighs with massive relief, telling Elaine that her genius theory finally makes this deadly experiment safe to perform. Elaine just smirks behind her sandwich, knowing full well that no researcher could resist a breakthrough like this. Her master plan worked perfectly. She leans back with a satisfied grin, knowing that winning over the tower just secured her life against any future threat. Candelario stares while she eats, forcing her to snap back that she actually loves this simple ham sandwich. She explains a cafeteria lady made it, completely weirded out by why the tower master is staring at her lunch so intensely. She praises the humble meal, swearing that even without fancy ingredients, it's a comforting flavor you could never get tired of. Candelario reveals the cook raved about Elaine's milk-warming invention, and that proof of her kindness is exactly why he chose to trust her. He praises her drive to help others, predicting her new magic shield will save countless lives just like her previous inventions. The old master somberly admits he rushed his research because he was desperate to save those poor children used as test subjects. Looking back, he realizes his original plan was a total death trap because the magic involved was dangerously unstable. He shudders to think that without her help, the magical backlash would have completely drained his mana reserves. Elaine takes a bite of her sandwich as he confesses that in the worst-case scenario, his failure would have slaughtered everyone around him. Candelario stares at the young noblewoman with raw gratitude, declaring that she's the only reason he's still breathing. Elaine takes it all in, a soft smile spreading across her face as she realizes they've finally rewritten their dark fate. With a graceful bow, she ends the talk, insisting that helping him was the greatest honor she could ever ask for. 3 days after the Magic Tower visit, young Master Sieg is causing absolute chaos, leading his terrified servants on a wild chase through the gardens. He suddenly slams on the brakes and points to a high branch, demanding a maid grab a stunning flower that just caught his eye. It's a perfect, breathtaking rose in full bloom, and Sieg is absolutely obsessed with it. Sieg's face lights up at the thought of gifting it to his mom, but the maids quickly warn him that she's buried in work at her office. Not wanting to disturb her, the sweet kid decides to save the gift for later instead of barging in. Back at the Fallen's Manor in the capital, the news is explosive. Sales for the new magical shield device are absolutely skyrocketing. Elaine and her advisor break down how the Night Order's heroic defense against that massive tidal wave saved lives and sent their reputation through the roof. That crazy incident actually became the ultimate marketing stunt, sending their sales figures straight to the moon. Her assistant is freaking out over her insane schedule, but Elaine just brushes him off like it's nothing. She laughs it off, reminding him that since she dragged him out of retirement, she's got no right to complain about the grind. Elaine stands firm, declaring that she's the only one sharp enough to crush the upcoming global trade talks. She dives back into the mountain of paperwork, accepting the grim reality that sleep is a distant memory. But suddenly a light bulb goes off. She's spotted a sneaky loophole that changes everything. Scanning a report about a 2-week delay, she realizes this is her golden ticket to ditch her desk. Faking a sudden crisis, she bolts upright and announces she has to handle these delays at the Magic Tower herself. She sprints out of the office with a burst of energy, screaming for her staff to get the carriage ready right now. The second she's free from those files, she admits the truth. All she really wants is to be a total couch potato. She justifies her getaway by remembering the mana detection device was already set for its big precision test today. She locks in her excuse, recalling the old mage's plea for a 2-week extension due to the flood of new test subjects. The moment she arrives, her family greets her with open arms, relieved she finally escaped her mountain of work. Clement winces under Elaine's piercing gaze as she calls him out for pulling the strings behind this entire setup. He spills the beans, admitting he manipulated the merchant guilds and the magic tower just to save her from working herself to death. With a soft voice, he explains that he just wanted a real chance for them to talk and bond like a real family again. Elaine lets out a long sigh, realizing that with her insane schedule, she can't even be mad at him for staging this intervention. Staring out at the shimmering water with Seagrun in the distance, she starts to think this forced vacation might actually be a great idea. She proudly introduces Sieg to the stunning Lake Ashen, boasting about its crystal-clear waters and the massive schools of fish swimming below. When Sieg sees all the boats and thinks he's at the ocean, Elaine gives him a sweet smile and explains that this water isn't salty at all. She dives into a hardcore lecture, explaining exactly how mana density mutates ordinary fish into giant aquatic beasts. Clement cuts her off mid-sentence just as she starts spiraling into deep academic theories about the local ecosystem. He points out that her massive brain dump is literally frying Sieg's mind, leaving a flustered Elaine to apologize to her dizzy son. Sieg gives them a sweet smile, telling them he just loved seeing his parents having so much fun together. He bashfully admits he didn't understand a single word she said, making his parents burst into amused grins. They finally roll into the free city of Aster, and Elaine is thrilled to see the town is just as vibrant and magical as she remembers. She reveals that her family owns a massive villa across the lake, the very place she spent her entire childhood. While Sieg sprints ahead, Elaine's inner workaholic takes over as she starts plotting high-stakes meetings to sell her magical shields. Clement shuts down her business talk, reminding her that this place has been a monster-free safe haven since the Great Tidal Wave. He looks her dead in the eye, insisting that this is her one real shot to finally get some well-deserved rest. Seeing Sieg's pure joy finally melts Elaine's icy exterior, and she admits Clement was right. They desperately need this break. She tosses her duties aside, vowing to finally let go and soak in every second of peace. That peace is blown to bits when Elaine senses a lethal threat, lunging forward and screaming for Clement to get Sieg to safety now. She slams her mana into her shield device, fueling the magic with everything she's got to force the barrier up. A colossal blue dragon drops from the sky, its devastating breath slamming into Elaine's barrier while the terrified crowd wonders how such a monster even got here. The beast towers over the trembling families, its predatory eyes sending a wave of pure, unadulterated terror through the streets. It roars back into the sky, tearing through rooftops and leaving a path of ruin as it glides away from the scene. Elaine's muscles strain against the crushing pressure, her teeth gritted as she commands her shield to stand its ground. The onslaught stops and the shield holds firm, but Elaine doesn't relax for a second, already bracing for the next lethal blow. She scans the empty horizon and realizes the dragon is gone, finally giving them a single desperate moment to breathe. Blood pours from Clement's head as he wonders if the dragon's strike was a random whim or a calculated move, while Elaine screams his name in a panic. The street is a total graveyard of rubble, filled with the desperate cries of survivors clawing through the wreckage for their families. A man wails that an old woman is buried alive under the stones, and Elaine's face turns stone cold as she takes in the absolute carnage. Knowing simple bandages won't cut it, Elaine unleashes her ultimate healing spell, Magnum Sonar, to save the dying crowd. Sieg stands there paralyzed with awe, his eyes glued to the blinding light of his mother's godlike power. Elaine snaps her focus back to her son, calling out his name with a mother's warmth, despite the hell breaking loose around them. She commands Sieg to head for the villa with his dad, because she refuses to abandon these people in their darkest hour. Sieg gives a firm nod, putting his fear aside to respect his mother's noble duty. Elaine takes charge of the chaos, ordering Clement to guard Sieg with his life while she prepares to bring in emergency supplies. As they gallop away, Sieg looks back to see his mother already on her knees, desperately trying to save a man's shattered leg. Watching her fight tooth and nail to save every life, Sieg vows right then and there to follow in his mother's footsteps. But deep down, Elaine's mind is racing with a cold calculation. This disaster is the golden ticket she needs to win over the masses. She flashes a saintly smile, brushing off a poor man's apologies for his empty pockets while playing the role of a selfless noble to absolute perfection. Elaine flaunts her magical device with effortless grace, acting humble and telling the stunned crowd she's just doing what any healer would. But the crowd isn't blind. They spot that rare magical shield and realize she has to be a high-ranking noble from the Fallen's ducal house. A sharp-eyed local notices the device is a one-of-a-kind prototype, meaning this woman isn't just a noble, she's the genius creator herself. Sensing their savior is hiding her identity for a reason, the townspeople decide to respect her secrets and stop digging into her past. Rather than blowing her cover, the overwhelmed crowd gives her a legendary new title, the Saint of Aster. Elaine tries to reject the name, but an elderly woman she just healed cuts her off, weeping with joy as she feels the strength return to her aged body. The old woman begs Elaine to take a gift of thanks, stubbornly refusing to take no for an answer no matter how much Elaine hesitates. Elaine presents the mysterious gift to Clement, confessing she was pressured into taking an object she's never even seen before. As they inspect the shimmering artifact, they realize it's a legendary dragon crystal, a treasure of unimaginable value. Clement's jaw drops as he recognizes this ultra-rare gem that only surfaces at elite noble auctions once every 20 years. He explains the shocking truth. This isn't a normal stone, but a unique source of magic forged by dragons themselves. This isn't some common loot from a monster corpse. It's the ultimate proof of a sacred pact with a high-ranking dragon that can never be taken by force. Elaine remembers the old woman claiming she got it from a mountain dragon ages ago, but the surrounding chaos made it impossible to ask for the full story. With the crisis finally over, official reports confirm that Elaine and the ducal house successfully saved Aster from total devastation. Shifting gears to their family vacation, Sieg lets out an excited scream when he feels a massive tug on his fishing line. Elaine playfully goads Clement to show off his skills, forcing him to lock in so he can look like a total hero to his son. Clement white-knuckles the fishing rod as Sieg cheers him on with pure childhood adrenaline. Clement puts his back into it and hauls in a monster catch, leaving Sieg absolutely speechless at its sheer size. The family digs into a feast of ash and dark fish, a local delicacy the captain swears is delicious no matter how you cook it. The captain lets out a booming laugh as Sieg shovels down his food, promising the young master that eating like a beast will make him grow big and strong. With fire in his eyes, Sieg declares he's going to grow huge just so he can protect and help his mother. The wholesome vibe is shattered when a sailor screams that a child is drowning, snapping Elaine's focus back to the life-or-death situation. The captain locks onto the victim through his telescope and barks orders to close the distance and ready the rescue ropes. Through the lens, he sees a young girl flailing wildly, fighting a losing battle against the crashing waves. A monster suddenly blocks their path, making Elaine sigh in frustration that this vacation has turned into a total nightmare. Panic erupts as a colossal demonfish breaches the surface of Lake Ashen, looming right over the helpless child. A crewman shrieks for everyone to hold their fire, terrified that a stray shot might hit the noble child instead of the beast. Kleeman spots the crest on the approaching ship and realizes it belongs to Count Oculus, the elite captain of the Royal Guard. Standing on his deck, Count Oculus glares at the scene, immediately recognizing Clement as his hated former rival. He hesitates to act, paralyzed by the bitter memory of losing his status because of that woman and the rigid laws of the nobility. Sieg ignores the political drama and steels his resolve, gritting his teeth as he prepares to dive into the fray. With a fearless leap, the boy plunges into the water and snatches the drowning girl just as the monster closes in for the kill. He hauls her onto the deck, gasping for breath and trembling violently from the sheer physical strain. As the adrenaline dies down, Sieg begins to shiver uncontrollably, finally feeling the bone-chilling frost of the lake water. Kleeman gives his son a reassuring thumbs up, confirming the girl is unconscious but alive. She's going to be okay. Sieg blushes at the praise, stammering that he didn't even think. His body just moved on its own to save her. In that moment, he thinks of his mother and feels a massive surge of pride, knowing he finally has the power to save lives. He beams with pure, unadulterated joy, finally feeling the rush of being a true savior. Elaine looks at her son with warmth in her eyes, telling him straight up how incredibly proud she is of his bravery. Sieg stares at his trembling hands, completely stunned that he actually used his power to protect someone. Elaine watches him in total awe, realizing her son's spirit is already starting to eclipse her own. The peace is instantly shattered as a man slams onto the deck, screaming at the top of his lungs. It's Count Oculus, and he drops into a battle stance, losing his mind when he spots Clemens standing right there. He blasts past everyone, his voice breaking as he desperately screams for his daughter, Irene! Irina coughs up lake water and opens her eyes, sending her father crashing to his knees in a fit of sobbing relief. Irene explains how that monstrous demon fish smashed into the ship and sent her flying into the icy depths, apologizing for being so helpless. She remembers a strange dark light suddenly wrapping around her body, shielding her from a certain death. Count Oculus is absolutely floored, realizing that since no standard spell could touch that monster, a mysterious hidden power must have saved his daughter. Sieg and his father exchange a panicked glance and silently vow to keep the truth buried, while the Count decides that digging into secret abilities is a one-way ticket to trouble. The Count's eyes suddenly snap wide as he recognizes the boy. It's Seacart Fallens, the young heir to the legendary Fallens ducal house. Finally finding her voice, Irina stands tall and bows deeply, introducing herself as Irina Oculus, and pouring her heart out in thanks to Sieg for saving her life. Sieg tries to wave her off, desperately telling her to stay down and rest, since she's still clearly drained from the terrifying ordeal. But Irina refuses to back down, fiercely declaring that her father raised her to show her saviors the highest honor, no matter how much she's hurting. Count Oculus lets out a thunderous roar of agreement, swearing on his life that he'll take the secret of Sieg's power to the grave. Elaine watches the fiery exchange with a knowing smile, realizing that this passionate father and daughter are two peas in a pod. The heavy atmosphere vanishes as Irina excitedly asks her mother if she can show Lord Sieg around the villa, desperate to get closer to her hero. Elaine gives her the green light with a warning to behave, but secretly, she's stunned by how different this peaceful scene is from the dark future she remembers. Elaine recalls that in the original timeline, the Fallens family and the royal guard captain were bitter rivals who never breathed the same air. Seeing Clement and the Count stumble through a conversation, Elaine realizes these two might have been perfect friends all along. Her eyes land on the Count's wife as she remembers a dark truth. In the old life, this very accident left their daughter permanently disabled. Berta Oculus nervously offers more tea, but she's destined to become the most feared serpent in all of high society. Elaine remembers Berta's terrifying gift, the ability to rip open a person's heart and expose their darkest secrets through pure intuition. Right now, Berta is just a shy, insecure woman, timidly asking if someone like her is even worthy of a duchess's friendship. Elaine comforts her, insisting that since their husbands and kids are already bonding, they should definitely do the same. The two women forge a powerful bond, creating a new future that completely shatters the tragic fate of the original timeline. Elaine praises Bertha's sharp wit, seeing flashes of the powerhouse she'll become while they both promise to keep things professional. Elaine warns that one tiny mistake in high society leads to ruin, but Bertha confidently declares that no one would ever dare insult a duchess. Elaine's mind spirals into darkness as she imagines a future of deadly bounties and assassins hunting her down. She's haunted by the terrifying possibility that this nightmare could actually become her reality. Suddenly, Berta steps in with burning devotion, begging Elaine to use her as a human shield if danger ever strikes. Bertha screams that since Sieg saved her daughter, her own life is a small price to pay to keep his family safe. Elaine is stunned, realizing Bertha's insane level of loyalty is a perfect mirror of her own husband's. She teases Bertha for turning bright red, amused to see the woman's serious mask finally crack. Elaine clears her throat to calm the air, joking that it's only natural for families to be this intense. Berta quietly asks if Sieg inherited that same spirit, subtly shifting the conversation back to the boy's nature. She brings up the legendary rumors of a saint in Astor, proving that Elaine's heroic reputation has spread across the world. With a knowing smirk, Bertha notes how the saint always hides behind a cup of tea to dodge praise, staring right through Elaine's disguise. Elaine freezes, staring into her cup as Bertha's razor-sharp intuition cuts right through her. Tossing her mask aside, Elaine finally confesses that she's far more powerful than anyone ever imagined. Looking at her own reflection, she admits she's become a master of deception just to survive. Memories of a clairvoyant friend flood back, a girl who forced a smile even when the world was falling apart. Elaine realizes she's even been fooling herself, and now she's terrified that she might be stuck this way forever. But as she watches her son playing nearby, she knows there's one person she can never truly deceive. She gives a quiet nod to Bertha, finally surrendering to the cold, hard truth. If this is the life Seacart desires, then Elaine vows to transform herself, no matter the cost. Staring at the massive peaks above, she desperately searches for a way to fix the chaos spiraling around them. Clement walks up with a smile, mentioning how Sieg played himself into exhaustion, while Elaine finally found a true friend in Bertha. He blushes, admitting that he and Bertha spent their entire conversation gushing about Elaine. A flustered Clement spills the beans. Bertha says it's dead obvious he's head over heels for Elaine, even if she's totally clueless. Elaine's face turns stone cold as she declares she has to reach the manor right this second. She's baffled. Why would a giant demon fish lurk in the harbor when they usually haunt magic-rich mountain lakes? If that beast swam this far to escape, then something terrifying must be going down in those peaks. A chilling thought hits her. This chaos is definitely linked to that blue dragon sighting. Clement is terrified for her safety, but he knows there's no way he can stop her from charging into the fray. Holding their sleeping son close, he whispers a soft goodbye and begs her to stay safe. Elaine hunts down a massive surge of magic, feeling the raw energy vibrating through the mountain air. She's stunned to find nothing but a barren wasteland where that overwhelming power should be. She shatters the illusion, instantly spotting the twisted layers of magic woven into a massive, unnatural barrier. With a shout, she casts Unravel, tearing apart the cloaking spell to expose the titan lurking in the shadows. A massive eye snaps open in the dark, the beast paralyzed with shock that a mere human just shredded its ultimate spell. Elaine stands paralyzed as a gargantuan dragon fades into view, mocking her for being struck dumb by his terrifying presence. The monster declares himself the Black Dragon, the legendary king of his race and the strongest being alive. Elaine's brain short-circuits as she wonders if dragons are just common pests here, a thought that sends the beast into a blind rage. He sneers that he didn't pick this dump, but warns her that he'll obliterate anyone foolish enough to cross his path. He scoffs at her existence, telling her to get lost right now if she can't handle the heat. He towers over her with pure, suffocating bloodlust, calling her a pathetic mortal whose life means absolutely nothing to him. But Elaine doesn't flinch, coldly stating that she learned years ago that bluffing against a god-tier power is a total waste of time. She slams him with the cold, hard truth. His arrival sent monsters on a rampage, and a little girl almost paid the ultimate price. Remembering the blue dragon sighting, she spots a massive, jagged wound on his side that only a beast of equal power could have carved out. She realizes he was being hunted and only survived by hiding, and the moment she mentions the blue dragon, his entire demeanor shifts. Suddenly, the massive dragon lunges forward, sniffing Elaine intensely to figure out exactly who, or what, she really is. Elaine recoils in shock, screaming at him to back off as he invades her personal space. He confesses that the blue dragon nearly finished him off, and while he wants to vanish, his broken wings won't let him fly. He reveals he's hiding here to use the mountain's magic stones to heal, barely escaping a brutal hunt meant to end his life. Elaine is stunned by his honesty, but the dragon simply tells her he's talking because he can't smell a single lie on her soul. Suddenly, the black dragon freezes in shock. He detects a faint, unmistakable scent on Elaine, the powerful aura of his own mother. He explains that this energy only belongs to the highest tier of dragons and demands to know if she's crossed paths with one recently. Elaine finally connects the dots and reveals Aster's shimmering stone, and the dragon instantly recognizes it as his mother's own crystal. Elaine is willing to hand over the priceless relic, but she makes it crystal clear. This gift comes with a heavy price. The dragon is absolutely stunned when she ignores gold and riches, demanding only one thing, that he vanishes from this place forever. Since he wants to heal and escape, and she wants him gone, their goals are perfectly aligned for a deal. She tosses the crystal his way, shouting that its massive power dwarfs any normal magic stone and will let him escape in a heartbeat. The black dragon catches the gift with deep respect, swearing he's in her debt as the crystal erupts with a blinding light. As the raw energy surges through his veins, a wave of nostalgia hits him. He's finally feeling a warmth he hasn't known in ages. The healing glow dies down to reveal his fully restored body, and he shares a silent, knowing glance with Elaine. Suddenly, his face turns grim as he realizes that in his moment of relief, he's made a fatal tactical mistake. He realizes with horror that by dropping his cloaking spell to grab the crystal, he's just broadcasted his exact location to the world. That explosive surge of energy from his mother's crystal acted like a flare, screaming his location to the predator hunting him down. Knowing there's no escape, he looks up just as the blue dragon dives from the heavens to deliver the killing blow. A lethal storm of ice magic slams into the earth, forcing the black dragon to shield Elaine with his massive wing. He roars at her to run for her life and take cover behind his tail, desperate to keep her out of the crossfire. Elaine ignores the order, her face hardening with a look of pure, unyielding determination. Instead of running, she leaps onto the black dragon's back, silently vowing to fight by his side until the very end. The blue dragon sneers at them, mocking Elaine for being a fool who's chosen to die alongside a traitor. The black dragon admits he can't beat his elder, but Elaine snaps back that she'll fight anyway because this monster threatened her family. The blue dragon taunts them for keeping their elders waiting, declaring she won't tolerate such blatant disrespect. The black dragon calls out to her as Aunt in total shock, but she coldly retorts that his death would only prove how worthless he truly is. She declares that for those with dragon blood, absolute power is everything, and this battle is nothing more than a brutal test of strength. Letting out a blood-curdling roar, the blue dragon dives straight for their throats, forcing the black dragon to scream at Elaine to hold on tight. The two massive beasts collide in midair, their titanic bodies clashing with enough force to shatter the very sky. The black dragon grunts in pure agony, desperately struggling to survive the overwhelming might of his elder relative. With a heavy heart, he thanks Elaine for staying by his side, finding comfort in the fact that they won't be alone when they face death together. Suddenly, he's baffled to realize his wound is barely a scratch, leaving him wondering how on earth he's still standing. The blue dragon unhinges her massive jaws, charging up her ultimate secret art, a devastating breath attack meant to bury them both forever. The black dragon warns Elaine that she's witnessing a legendary sight, pure dragon magic condensed into a catastrophic beam of light. The blue dragon unleashes her breath, a pillar of pure destruction that rips through the earth and vaporizes a mountain peak in an instant. As the smoke clears, the blue dragon is absolutely stunned to see him still standing, demanding to know what that mortal did to change their fate. Elaine nonchalantly reveals she's completely rewired his mana circuits, supercharging his physical buffs and defensive shields to a whole new level. She trashes dragon magic as primitive garbage, mocking how they bleed half their energy while she executes every spell with surgical precision. The black dragon stands there frozen, his mind reeling that a mere human could rewrite a dragon's internal magic like it was child's play. Elaine asks if he can weaponize that power for an attack, and once he nods, she drops a bombshell of a plan. She demands he hand over total control of his life and magic, swearing to unleash his true potential if he just follows her command. The blue dragon cackles at the ridiculous idea of a dragon and human teaming up, but she can't help but find the chaos intriguing. She throws out a twisted deal. If they both crawl at her feet and swear to be her slaves, she might just let them live. Elaine shuts her down with a stone-cold no, making it clear that the real bloodbath is about to start. The blue dragon lets out a heavy, dramatic sigh, acting like her fun was ruined by such pathetic disrespect. Elaine screams, "Now!" as the black dragon rockets forward, diving headfirst into the massive open jaws of his own kin. The collision is absolutely bone-shattering, sending massive shockwaves through the sky as the black dragon desperately wrestles his aunt. The blue dragon charges a lethal breath attack, a swirling vortex of raw energy ready to incinerate them both in an instant. Suddenly, the blast just dies out, leaving the blue dragon completely frozen in shock at this impossible failure. Elaine emerges on the black dragon's back, revealing she didn't kill the elder dragon. She warped her straight off the battlefield. She explains that while her strike crippled the blue dragon's movement, the real win was banishing that monster for good. Battered and drained, the black dragon declares he must fly home right now to expose his aunt's disgusting betrayal. He glares at Elaine, admitting her family is a walking disaster, but he can't deny that she just saved his life. He rips a shimmering scale from his own hide and hands it over, swearing that a dragon always pays his debts. Elaine isn't impressed at all, coldly telling him that a single scale doesn't even begin to cover the chaos he caused. She demands his priceless dragon crystal instead, and the black dragon recoils at such an insane price. He realizes he's trapped and owes her his life, so he finally gives in and hands over the priceless gem. In a flash of light, he transforms into a 10-year-old boy named Zil, leaving Elaine absolutely speechless. Zil reveals he didn't cross the border to fight, but was a desperate refugee fleeing the bloody war in his own land. He formally introduces himself as Zil, the strongest warrior of the demon kin, and warns her that a dragon's visit is a death sentence for most humans. He swears he'll return to repay his debt, making it clear that their paths are destined to cross again. As his body begins to fade into the spirit realm, He smiles and finally acknowledges Elaine by her name. Elaine watches him vanish into thin air, thinking Zill is a pretty cool name, just as she spots someone sprinting toward her. Clement crashes into her with a massive hug, and she realizes he's been waiting in agony all night for her return. He holds her tight, his voice trembling as he shouts about how terrified he was that he'd lost her forever. He admits that even though she's incredibly strong and brilliant, he just can't stop his heart from racing with worry. He pulls her into a tight embrace, vowing that as her husband he'll never leave her side no matter what hell breaks loose. Elaine gives him a tender smile, her eyes glowing with pure love as she accepts his unwavering devotion. Her thoughts flash back to her previous life, and she finally realizes just how much her husband, kids, and even Lily truly adored her. It hits her. In those final moments, she wasn't filled with rage, but was sobbing from the sheer agony of leaving them behind. The two collapse onto the soft grass, staring up at the sky as the chaos of war melts into a beautiful, quiet peace. Elaine grips Clement's hand with everything she's got, needing to feel that he's really there with her. With a burning fire to protect her new family, she turns to her husband to share a secret wish. She catches him totally by surprise, blurting out that she wants to have at least 4 kids. Clement turns bright red but beams at her, imagining how wild and full of life their home is about to become. Elaine nods with a soft grin, knowing that a house full of laughter is exactly what she's been dreaming of. Deep inside, she carves out a brand new destiny, praying that this time she'll greet that child with nothing but a smile. At the Oculus Villa in the city of Aster, little Irina is a ball of pure energy, dragging Lord Sieg along and telling him to move his legs. A maid whispers about Irina being a total tomboy, but Elaine just smiles, knowing the girl is actually brilliant and full of life. Elaine knows that normally, a kid would be traumatized after seeing magic that powerful and mysterious. But since Sieg was the one who saved her, all that fear just melted away, letting her bounce back instantly. Elaine realizes there's just no way Irina could be afraid when her savior is such a charming and handsome young man. Completely ignoring the adults, Irina dashes ahead, shouting for Sieg to hurry up as she leads him to her favorite hideout. Fueled by pure grit, Irina declares she's training like a demon to become a legendary knight just like her father. Since she can't use a drop of magic, she's dedicated every waking moment to pushing her body to the absolute limit. She looks at Sieg and admits she's never seen magic as insane as his, humbly realizing she's not even in the same league yet. She beams with excitement, declaring Lord Sieg is one of a kind, while he questions if his unique magic is the only thing that makes him special. Irina's joy turns to bitter envy as she huddles up, confessing the crushing news that she was told she had 0 talent for the magic she craved. A distant memory resurfaces, showing her younger self placing her small, trembling hands onto a massive crystal ball for her aptitude test. In that moment, the crystal erupted with a dazzling glow, reflecting the pure happiness of the 2 people she cherished most. But despite having raw magical energy, the final judgment was brutal. She possessed absolutely no elemental affinity. Because of that one flaw, she's convinced she's powerless. A revelation that sends Sieg spiraling into deep thought. Suddenly, Sieg's face transforms into a confident, beaming smile, catching Irina completely off guard by his sudden shift. He excitedly suggests that her magic might actually be real, and insists they go talk to his mother right this second. He grabs her hand and drags her away while a stunned Irina stammers in shock, realizing her lifelong dream might not be dead after all. As she follows him, Irina's face flushes bright red, realizing that Lord Sieg is always the one who swoops in to rescue her. Miles away in the holy capital of Utopia, a chilling, heavy silence grips the Redot theocracy. Inside a colossal cathedral, the massive stone walls loom overhead with a crushing sacred weight. Sharp footsteps echo through the hall as a figure approaches a girl in prayer, calling out to Lady Anna. An elderly nun begs forgiveness for the interruption, but Anna remains perfectly calm and brushes it off. The nun hails Anna as the perfect candidate for the next saintess, claiming the nation's future is finally safe in her hands. Anna turns with a look of pure doubt, whispering a question about whether that's actually the truth. The nun snaps back, lecturing her that the saintess is the country's backbone, reminding her of the ancient chaos when no saintess existed. She warns that without the saintess's divine power, the entire world would crumble into nothingness. Anna recites the holy law that God chooses the saintess, but her voice fades as she questions the true source of that power. Staring into the glowing stained glass, Anna secretly admits she knows a dark truth hidden beneath all those holy lies. She drones on about the saintess's divine awakening and God's holy gifts, but her face stays cold and grim. Anna knows the truth. The entire dogma is a total lie designed to hide the bloody conflict between two rival saintess candidates. The nun starts rambling about the good old days before Anna was even born, back when two girls were fighting for the ultimate title. A vision flashes back to the nun bowing to a girl who looks exactly like Anna, as Anna whispers one word in the present. Mother. The nun wonders what happened to that other candidate, instantly triggering a dark, painful memory. A broken woman appears in a vision, the rival who fled the holy nation after being absolutely crushed by the current saintess. Deep in the Falun's capital, 5-year-old C. Cart Faluns is bouncing off the walls, begging his mom to let him go play. Helene Faluns looks up from her desk and snaps Sieg's name to get his attention. She tells him to rest since he's already caked in mud from sword practice, but Sieg protests. He promised to meet his friends Limit and Castor. Recognizing the kids he met during the town inspection, she gives him the green light, but only if he stays inside the estate grounds. Seek roars his agreement and bolts out the door while Elaine screams for him to be back before the sun goes down. A drenched Clement Follins bursts in shouting for his wife, but Elaine instantly redirects his attention to their little girl, Noelle. Clement freaks out when baby Noelle explodes into tears the second he tries to say his goodbyes. Heartbroken, the poor dad thinks his own daughter hates him as she lunges desperately for her mother's arms. Elaine chuckles at the drama, but then she spots Noelle's tiny fist death-gripping the jewel on Clement's tie. She realizes the baby just hates his fashion choice, leaving Clement absolutely floored by the ridiculous truth. After a quick wardrobe change, Clement desperately hopes this new tie finally passes his daughter's brutal inspection. Noelle starts giggling like crazy, leaving Clement stunned that a simple tie change worked, while Elaine brags about their daughter's elite fashion taste. It finally clicks for Clement. Noelle's tantrums weren't random. She's been judging his style this whole time. Elaine gives her husband a warm smile, admitting that the new look actually suits him way better. Clemens turns bright red from the praise, stammers a quick goodbye, and struts out with a massive boost of confidence. Sieg realizes that even though his world has flipped upside down, some things will never change. Those kids are exactly like he remembers, just way more chaotic and wild than ever. Back inside, a maid drops a bombshell on Elaine. A mysterious guest has arrived, even though her schedule is totally empty. The door swings open to reveal a massive, intimidating figure who demands to see her right this second. It's Lord Candelario himself, and he's wearing a look of dead serious intensity. Elaine keeps her cool but fires back, making it clear that a heads-up would have been nice. Candelario snaps back that at least he used the front door, and Elaine can't help but give him a tiny bit of credit for that. He claims he had no choice but to rush, then pivots instantly to ask about Lord Seacart's condition. Elaine sees right through him. This is all about her son, so she tells him Sieg is currently outside, absolutely caked in garden mud. Candelario drops the bombshell. He's here because the boy possesses a legendary, ultra-rare magic. Thanks to Elaine's genius tech, word of this insane power is leaking from the elite towers straight to the streets. Elaine stays cool, reminding him that mastering the invisible is a nightmare, and they've barely scratched the surface. Their plan is simple: snatch up 5-year-old prodigies before they grow up, because this power almost never shows up in adults. The original blueprint was to ship these kids off to the Magic Academy once they hit their teenage years. But Candelario just met the headmaster, and he's got a shocking new deal that catches Elaine completely off guard. He confesses the headmaster ripped them a new one, claiming the magic tower is a terrible place to raise a child. Elaine nods along, and Candelario has no choice but to swallow his pride and admit the guy was right. Since 5-year-olds are way too young for the big leagues, the Academy is building a brand new primary school just for them. They're launching an elite class for special magic users, and Elaine is already calculating exactly what this means for the future. Candelario scoffs, doubting if ordinary professors can handle kids with such explosive and unpredictable powers. Elaine nods, knowing that one wrong move with this devastating magic could lead to a total catastrophe. Candelario wears a sly smirk, admitting that this lethal risk is the very reason he reached out to the headmaster. He boldly proclaims that Lady Elaine is the only soul alive who can tame these wild students and lead them to victory. We cut to the grand, sprawling campus of the elite Eastward Kingdom Academy for Magi. Down in the training yard, a student desperately chants, begging the spirit of fire to heed his call. With a guttural roar, the boy forces the flames into a burning arrow and lets it fly. The fiery bolt hisses as it slams into a magical barrier held firm by his instructor. Gasping for air, young Andy Hahn collapses in pure joy when he hears the words, You passed. High up on the balcony, a mysterious voice demands a full report on the boy's performance. The judges are ripping into the boy's tiny mana pool, but they're absolutely floored by his insane focus and control in this entrance exam. One observer beams with pride, noting that the Academy's talent pool is exploding with power year after year. Everyone agrees the old mixed-age system was a total mess, making this new primary division the perfect solution to separate the students. This new division is the golden ticket to finally recruit kids born with incredibly rare and special magic attributes. She turns back to the group, dead serious as she asks if they're actually for real about her taking the job. Elaine freezes in shock. She's talking to Headmistress Curine Main, a century-old blood elf whose pride is more massive than a mountain. It's unheard of for a legendary being like her to serve humans, and Elaine finds this smiling woman to be a total enigma. Remembering the elf retreated to the sacred forest before the treason, Elaine is desperately searching for a way to turn down the offer politely. Elaine is drowning in self-doubt, knowing her status as a duchess doesn't mean a thing to an ancient, powerful blood elf. Curine fires back that Elaine's incredible track record makes her the perfect choice, calling her one of the most elite women in the entire land. Elaine's heart skips a beat as she hears the elf invoke the name of her very best friend, the legendary Lady Celine. With a smirk of pure confidence, Curine stands tall, placing herself on the exact same pedestal as Elaine and Celine. Curine gracefully promises that she respects the heavy burdens of Elaine's status and motherhood, vowing to honor every one of her duties. Then, the elf drops a total bombshell, revealing with a piercing gaze that she's studied every single one of Elaine's academic writings. As Elaine stands there reeling, Curine admits she's spent years obsessively researching that same power for her own survival. Curine recalls how she once thought it was insane for a lowly human to even dream of writing about the secrets of special attribute magic. But she confesses that every ounce of her prejudice evaporated the moment she read Elaine's brilliant work. She finally admits that even humans can earn true respect, declaring Elaine the only person alive capable of guiding special attribute users. Desperate for her help, Curine throws away her pride and begs Elaine to grant her this one request. This once arrogant elf bows her head low, pleading with a single heart-wrenching word. Elaine stands frozen in shock, watching this ancient powerhouse actually bow down in total submission. Elaine awkwardly clears her throat, telling Curine to stand up before nervously asking what happens if she rejects the offer. Curine's expression turns terrifying as she warns that she'll hold a grudge for centuries if Elaine dares to refuse her now. Elaine turns pale with pure dread, realizing just how terrifyingly petty this ancient elf really is. Elaine lets out a defeated sigh and accepts the job, but she's got two non-negotiable demands. She demands to scout every corner of the land for gifted children before the entrance exams even begin. Curine admits there could be more hidden talents out there and promises to set everything up instantly. Standing before a massive crowd, Elaine announces herself as the head of the Magic Academy's brand new primary division. She opens the floor for questions before diving into the grueling details of the upcoming entrance exam. Elaine declares that while the usual tests remain, she's adding a brand new requirement for every incoming student. She drops a bombshell. Any child gifted with special attribute magic qualifies for admission on raw power alone. A noblewoman snaps in a fit of rage, demanding to know if these students are really skipping the entrance exams. Elaine tries to explain it's not a guaranteed spot, but the crowd erupts, shouting that their own children have slaved away for years to earn their place. The audience refuses to accept this blatant favoritism, and their protests shake the very walls of the room. Elaine calmly raises her hand, silencing the mob as she assures them she hears their frustrations loud and clear. Her gaze turns ice cold as she reveals that this exact tension leads directly into her second, more serious request. In a flashback, Elaine begs Curine for a special attribute mage, knowing the only way to silence the skeptics is with a terrifying display of power. Curine flashes a confident smirk, promising she has the absolute perfect candidate for the job. We briefly see Salomon Main yawning in the distance, complaining that these sessions are always such a total snooze fest. Back in the present, Elaine commands the room's absolute attention as she introduces her secret weapon to the stunned audience. A mysterious figure steps into the spotlight, smoothing his clothes with effortless grace while every eye in the crowd is glued to him. Elaine introduces Salomon Main, the vice head and a master of rare attribute magic, making the crowd go wild for the stunning elf. The audience erupts in whispers as they realize they're standing in the presence of a true, high-ranking old blood. Elaine shuts down the skeptics instantly, demanding a duel to show everyone exactly what he's made of. With rumors of fraud filling the air, Salomon steps up, ready to silence the haters with a display of pure power. Salomon keeps a stone-cold face as he accepts, but inside he's panicking because Elaine totally blindsided him with this plan. He lets out a heavy sigh, complaining that this entire demonstration has become one massive pain in the neck. He casually dares Lady Elaine to strike whenever she's ready, acknowledging her terrifying reputation as a master of all magic. Internally, he's fuming, thinking that facing off against an old blood with special attributes is a total nightmare. Elaine doesn't hold back for a second, screaming "Earthen Javelin" as she launches a lethal magical assault. That magical blast screams through the air with devastating speed and raw power. Elaine's jaw drops as her javelin simply disintegrates into thin air before it can even touch him. Salomon stands there without a scratch, as Cooley declares that it's finally time for his counterattack. The confused crowd starts heckling, convinced the whole fight is a total scam since they can't see a single spark of magic. Suddenly, every mouth shuts tight as the solid stone beneath Elaine's feet turns into a bubbling pool of molten slag. Elaine moves like lightning, throwing up a magical barrier to shield herself from the invisible searing heat. Panic surges through her as she realizes her elite-level shields are literally melting away under the pressure. The audience watches in dead silence, unable to believe that a perfect defense is being shredded by an invisible force. Elaine grits her teeth, realizing this invisible strike hits harder than a lava cannon, even against her fifth-tier shield. That unseen power shatters her final line of defense, melting her magical barrier like a candle in a furnace. Gasping for breath, Elaine stares down the trembling crowd and confirms the truth. Salomon wields a terrifyingly rare power. She feeds on their fear, forcing them to imagine the total carnage if a power like this ever went berserk or fell into the wrong hands. Elaine announces that the Academy will hunt down these dangerous mages, tracking their every move under the iron fist of the law. She screams that leaving them loose is a death sentence, swearing that this system is the only thing keeping the public safe. She claims this leash is for their own good, protecting these outcasts from being crushed by a world that hates them. With the audience paralyzed by fear and totally sold, Elaine offers a cold thanks and shuts the meeting down. Elaine stretches her arms out with a wicked smirk, declaring the entire presentation a massive victory. She turns to thank Salomon for playing his part, but the chill elf just waves her off like it was nothing. But her face turns deadly serious as she asks if exposing his secret power to the entire world was actually a smart move. Salomon just scoffs, laughing that even if they know about his corrosion magic, there isn't a soul alive who can stop it. Elaine nods in agreement, confessing that even she was blown away by that insane display of power. She drops a bombshell. She analyzed his magic mid-fight to reinforce her shields, leaving Salomon absolutely speechless at her genius. With a mischievous grin, Elaine jokes that letting all that raw energy go to waste would have been a total tragedy. Salomon groans, remembering the agony of being crushed by those very same shields once she turned them into a weapon. Clutching his head in pure frustration, he calls Elaine a living nightmare for dismantling his entire strategy after just one hit. Elaine's gaze drifts away as she softly admits she's been hunting the secrets of this specific power for a long, long time. Salomon's jaw drops as the truth finally hits him. Now he knows exactly why his sister holds Elaine in such high regard. Brimming with newfound respect, Salomon stands tall and declares he's officially ready to follow her lead. Staring out the window, Elaine smiles back and promises that he's now a vital part of her grand design. We shift to a desperate village in the Eastward Kingdom, where starving people struggle under the shadow of massive, jagged mountains. The locals trade bitter, sarcastic jokes about their paradise, masking the absolute misery of their daily lives. Whispers turn into accusations as one man pins their entire downfall on the village chief's massive ego. His friend panics and shuts him up instantly, terrified that those dangerous words will get them killed. A woman lurks in the shadows, listening intently as the gossip shifts to a new nightmare haunting the village. Caked in thick black soot, little Marina crawls out of a fireplace and announces she's finally finished the grueling work. The homeowner doesn't offer a thank you. She just barks at the girl to get out of her sight immediately. Trembling with fear, Marina clutches her tools and nervously asks for the payment she was promised. The woman explodes in a fit of rage, screaming that Marina is nothing but an ungrateful, insolent brat. She shrieks that she's not stealing a dime while violently shoving the poor girl toward the door. Marina cowers on the cold floor, forced to endure a barrage of insults, calling her a filthy, greedy little monster. The woman flicks a coin into the mud, barking at Marina to crawl out and fetch her change. The villagers cackle like hyenas, mocking the pathetic family abandoned by a father who couldn't wait to escape. While Marina grovels for the coin, the crowd jeers at the rotting, broken-down shack she's forced to live in. Tears sting her eyes as she grips the cold metal, a desperate whisper escaping her lips. "I hate this life." They sneer about the local charity, knowing the chief's wife has blacklisted Marina's family from every bit of help. A dark secret hangs in the air. The village chief wants Marina's mother for himself, and his jealous wife is making them pay the price. Marina collapses by the river, pulling her knees to her chest as a flood of tears finally breaks through. Pure, cold bitterness takes hold as she hisses into the wind that she despises every single person in this cursed village. Their venomous insults scream in her head, labeling her mother a tramp and laughing at her father's betrayal. Drowning in the unfairness of her world, Marina screams her hatred for the village that has shattered her soul. Out of nowhere, a chilling voice hisses in her ear, questioning why she stays in a place she absolutely loathes. Marina snaps back that she's broke and would be monster bait, but the voice just purrs with pity for her miserable life. The voice drops a bombshell, suggesting they burn the entire village to the ground, leaving Marina completely paralyzed with horror. Panicking, Marina scans the desolate riverbank, desperate to find the phantom behind that sinister whisper. She grips her ear in total disbelief, wondering who on earth she was just talking to in this empty wasteland. Marina clutches her heart, vowing that her love for her mother is the only thing keeping her from hating this village to death. Suddenly, a violent uproar cuts her off, and she screams at the top of her lungs as she sprints toward her house. A deafening explosion of wood and stone erupts, and Marina shrieks for her mother as their home crumbles into dust. She bursts through the wreckage to find her trembling mother cornered by the ruthless village chief and his band of goons. With a heart of ice, the chief sneers at Assyria, telling her it's time to start thinking about what's best for her daughter's life. He barks that a woman and child don't stand a chance against the freezing winter in this rotting shack without a man's protection. Claiming they're out of options, the chief orders his men to smash through the walls while Marina huddles against her mother in terror. Brutes with sledgehammers begin demolishing the house, completely deaf to Marina's heart-wrenching cries for them to stop. Assyria screams for mercy, but the chief smugly reveals that the entire village has already signed off on this cruelty. He sneers that the town won't tolerate such a pathetic eyesore ruining their beautiful scenery any longer. As Assyria begs for her home with nowhere else to go, the chief gives her a sleazy look and offers her a job at his estate. Assyria recoils in pure disgust, reminding the monster that she's already rejected his vile demands. The chief snatches Marina away, growling that since the mother is being difficult, they'll just give the girl to a proper family. Assyria lunges forward with a piercing scream, fighting with every ounce of her soul to save her child. The chief turns lethal, threatening that with one command, he'll feed her daughter to the bloodthirsty monsters in the forest. He yanks Marina away with a cruel laugh, sneering that nobody wants a brat like her, leaving Assyria no choice but to surrender to save her daughter. Marina stands there paralyzed, her world shattering as the weight of her mother's sacrifice snaps something deep within her soul. While the villagers cheer and walk off like they just took out the trash, Marina reaches out a trembling hand toward her mother. Suddenly, her eyes ignite with a haunting, star-shaped glow as she screams that a village this rotten doesn't deserve to exist. A violent cyclone of wind and raw magic explodes around her, answering her desperate wish to tear everything to the ground. The villagers cower in pure terror, shrieking that it's impossible for a 6-year-old brat to possess such godlike power. The chief's smug bragging is instantly silenced as a monstrous wave of energy rips through the entire room. The brutal shockwave sends the chief and his thugs soaring through the air, slamming them into the walls with bone-crushing force. Assyria watches in total shock, trembling as she realizes this world-ending power is actually coming from her own little girl. Marina stands at the heart of the magical storm, her eyes burning bright as pure, chaotic energy floods out of her body. A violent storm screams around the little girl, shredding everything in sight until the chaos finally starts to fade. As the dust settles, a calm voice pierces the silence, asking Marina if she's ready to join the elite magic academy. Marina stares in total shock, looking up to find 2 elegant strangers standing right in the middle of her ruined home. Salomon's eyes glaze over with boredom, clearly disappointed that this massive explosion of power was just a total fluke. Elaine introduces herself as Amalia and immediately dives in to save the girl's bleeding mother. Marina screams for her mom, but Elaine gently scoops the woman up, promising to heal her wounds inside their carriage. They sprint out of the ruins with the injured woman, moving with a speed that leaves the villagers absolutely speechless. The village chief panics and screams that they can't just kidnap his people without his say-so. Elaine stops the group in their tracks, casually mentioning that something about this village smells incredibly fishy. She calls him out, noting that no family should be this poor since the village gets massive government funding for aid. The chief breaks into a cold sweat, stuttering that everything is under control and running perfectly. He pulls a desperate lie out of thin air, claiming they were just about to demolish that old shack for them. Scrambling to save his skin, he swears they were clearing the lot to build a mansion worthy of their gorgeous village. Elaine echoes his words with a chilling smirk, mocking his twisted idea of what a beautiful village looks like. The chief brags that his land is overflowing with riches, even while every other village nearby is starving from failed harvests. Elaine points out how suspicious it is that his crops are booming while everyone else is suffering in the dirt. Realizing he just walked into a trap, the chief panics and tries to play it off as a simple misunderstanding. Elaine drops the mask and exposes him, revealing there's no record of these harvests, meaning he's been dodging taxes. She leans in with a gaze that could kill, reminding him that lying on official reports carries a deathly high price. Suddenly, the earth violently heaves as a villager bursts in, screaming that a total catastrophe has struck. A terrified villager shrieks that every crop, tree, and blade of grass has been leveled to the ground. The chief watches in pure horror as his people wail that they're ruined, desperate to know what caused this nightmare. As the mob turns their rage on the chief, he screams his innocence while Elaine and her crew vanish into the night. The villagers collapse in total despair, knowing their harvest is gone and they won't survive the freezing winter. Leaving the doomed settlement in the dust, Elaine coldly remarks that no one could ever survive in a place like that. Fast forward several months, and it's finally the big day. Marina is heading to the Magic Academy entrance exam. Asaria watches her daughter cramming in the moving carriage and gently tells her she doesn't need to study every single second. Marina refuses to look up, insisting she can't afford to fail after the incredible kindness Lady Elaine showed them. A flashback hits, showing the life-altering moment Elaine revealed that Marina wields a legendary, ultra-rare magical attribute. Elaine promised to bankroll their entire lives if Marina enrolled, because her raw talent puts her on a completely different level. Marina's eyes widen with pure hope. She finally found her golden ticket to escape this village forever. Marina asks about her mom, and Elaine insists they move together since the capital is way too far for a daily commute. Elaine gives her a warm smile, promising she would never dream of tearing a child away from her mother. Marina remembers her desperate struggle to study without magic, fueled by the pure rage of her unfair life. Asaria beams with pride, confessing that her daughter's relentless grind was the spark that inspired her to keep going. As the carriage pulls up to the Magic Academy, Marina jokes that they'll never have to struggle to light a fire again. Marina hits the pavement and gasps in total shock. This school is more massive than her entire village. Swallowed by a sea of strangers, Marina shrinks back, terrified that she sticks out like a sore thumb. Her eyes lock onto a girl nearby who radiates the sheer, polished power of high-class nobility. Irina greets Lord Sekart with over-the-top formality, and he teases her for being a drama queen as they head to the exam hall. We flash back to a young Sieghart lost in thought, reflecting on the one person he admires most, his mother. He watches her work tirelessly at her desk, struck by just how incredible she truly is. As the eldest son of a noble duke, Sieghart knows he's destined to take over his father's legacy. But he can't help but wonder, does he really have to become a mirror image of his parents? He questions if he's forced to grow into a flawless adult who can master absolutely anything. Blushing with shame, he admits he used to think power was everything, but now that kind of perfection feels totally out of reach. He remembers her laughing with the commoners, realizing that despite her terrifying reputation as a goblin slayer, she's actually super easy to talk to. Driven by curiosity, young Sieg asks his mom why the king is supposed to be the most important person in the entire kingdom. He argues that since she's stronger than the king and all his knights combined, the whole hierarchy makes zero sense. Suddenly, the mood shifts, and Sieg realizes his innocent question just hit a massive, sensitive nerve. Looking back, Sieg realizes his suggestion must have hit his mother like a ton of bricks. Elaine immediately shuts the conversation down, pivoting to ask if Sieg is feeling worn out. She mentions Irina is visiting tomorrow, but she can tell Sieg is absolutely dying of boredom. His eyes sparkle with excitement as he begs to go play out in the garden. Elaine notices his growing obsession with magic and figures Irina is just as hyper at her age. She gives him the green light but lays down the law. No magic without her watching, and Sieg reluctantly agrees. Seeing his burning desire to master the mystic arts, Elaine decides it's time to drop a bombshell. She asks if he'd be interested in going to school, catching the young boy completely off guard. Sieg is baffled by the idea of a magic school, realizing his mother is way more than just a simple duchess. Elaine explains that the Magic Academy is where gifted kids just like him gather to sharpen their powers. Sieg's eyes ignite with a new fire as he swears to reach the same legendary heights as his mother. He jumps at the chance, promising to master his powers at school just so he can finally stand by her side. Fast forward to the entrance exams, where the examiner bellows out for candidate 275. Marina Klett! The man shouts her name again, scanning the massive crowd for any sign of the missing girl. A heavy, suffocating silence grips the hall when absolutely no one steps forward to claim the spot. Marina is paralyzed with pure terror in her seat until Sieg reaches out, gently checking if she's all right. She gazes up at the monstrous magical machine in total horror, admitting she's too petrified to even move. She whimpers that everyone leaves that room in tears, but Sieg promises it's nothing more than a simple scanner. He tells her it's painless, revealing those kids were only crying because they failed the test for special magic. With a confident grin and a thumbs up, Sieg gives her the boost she needs to stand tall and finally answer the call. The Magic Academy's entrance ceremony is finally here, and the courtyard is packed with students rocking their brand new uniforms. Marina beams as she thanks Sieg for saving her during the exam, and he gives her a smooth, polite introduction. But their moment is cut short when a snobby voice demands to know exactly who this random girl is. Marina starts shaking as a crushing, noble aura washes over her, just as the girl introduces herself as Irina. Sieg casually tells them to ditch the formal titles since they're classmates, leaving Irina absolutely stunned by his total lack of manners. Irina snaps at him instantly, demanding to know if he's really kept his true identity a secret from Marina this whole time. With a dramatic flourish, Irina drops the bombshell. He's actually Lord Seacart Fallens, the heir to one of the most powerful ducal houses in the land. Marina completely freezes, her jaw hitting the floor as the reality of his massive status finally sinks in. Her mind starts racing in a total panic. She's been treating a top-tier noble like he was just some regular guy. She recoils in fear and stammers out a desperate apology, instantly putting a massive wall between her and her new friend. Sieg's face drops, crushed that his own royal title has suddenly built a wall between them. He steps forward, desperate to prove that rank means nothing here and he just wants to be her friend. Marina searches his eyes, frozen in hesitation as she weighs his heartfelt plea. A warm smile breaks across her face as she tosses the formalities aside, mending their bond instantly. The sweet moment shatters as every eye in the room snaps toward the stage for the opening ceremony. Headmistress Curine strides to the podium, radiating an aura that demands absolute silence from the crowd. Her voice booms as she recounts the nation's bloody wars, glorious victories, and the dark conspiracies of the past. The students lean in with bated breath, waiting for a life-changing revelation as she prepares her final word. She flashes a massive grin and simply bellows for everyone to just get along, leaving the entire hall in stunned silence. The mood turns venomous as nasty rumors spread that the special attribute students cheated their way into the academy. Marina and Sieg whirl around to confront their accusers as Marina shuts down the rumors with pure fury. The bullies start whining, claiming they had to bleed for their magic while the specials just sat in a chair to pass. They sneer at the group, mocking them for being talentless fakes who can't cast a single spell. One bully gets right in their faces, demanding they prove they aren't frauds by showing off their magic right now. Sieg's knuckles turn white as he burns to fight back, but his mother's warning about using magic alone holds him back. He stands there paralyzed with rage while the bullies laugh at his silence, calling him a pathetic liar. Irina can't stand another second of it, stepping forward with a lethal glare and declaring she'll show them real power. She channels her inner energy, preparing a spell that will silence these loudmouths once and for all. A massive surge of magical energy erupts from her hands, absolutely stunning the bullies who thought she was powerless. The spell hits with overwhelming force, proving their true strength and leaving the bullies trembling in terror. Irina steps up with fire in her eyes, shouting at Sieg to stay out of her way while she unleashes her magic. She mocks the bullies and tries to fire off a spell, but panic strikes when her magic refuses to spark. Sieg stays cool as ice, revealing he's the one who crushed her spell before she could cause a bloodbath. Elaine steps in and shuts Irina down, warning her that her magic is way too lethal to use on her own classmates. Elaine doesn't stop there, scolding Irina for her toxic attitude and the way she treats her peers. The tension reaches a boiling point as the massive divide between the regular students and the Takuma class grows even wider. A student mocks the special class once more, claiming Professor Salomon's demo was a joke because he's just an old-blood adult. A dangerous glint flashes in Elaine's eyes as she realizes this doubt is the golden opportunity she's been waiting for. She throws down the gauntlet, challenging the doubter to a magic duel in 1 week to see if he can actually back up his talk. The boy looks shaken but stands his ground, locking in the challenge with a firm, defiant nod. Sieg scoffs as he watches him leave, certain that a kid with zero talent won't master magic in a measly week. Elaine brushes off the doubt and immediately dives back into the complexities of magical theory. The room is suffocating with tension, and nobody can focus on the lecture after that massive scene. A student named Anna trembles in her seat, completely paralyzed by a wave of crushing anxiety. With a trembling hand and a shaky voice, she asks the professor if they truly possess any special power at all. She reveals the heartbreaking truth. She was the only one in her family born without magic, and her own flesh and blood cast her aside for it. Tears stream down her face as she remembers her father and brothers branding her the ultimate disgrace to their family name. She explains that they only changed their tune and sent her here because it finally brought some scrap of honor to their house. Even after coming this far, she cries out in total despair that she still can't cast a single spell. A haunting memory flashes back of a woman coldly telling her that a girl who can't become a saintess is completely worthless. Elaine gives the broken girl a soft smile and flips the script, declaring that today's lesson is going to be unlike anything they've ever seen. She stands tall before the class and asks the students if they've all finally gotten their hands on the new gear. The room erupts in pure shock as she reveals these special tools will finally let them unleash standard attribute magic. One student can barely find the words, stammering out a question about how a miracle like this is even possible for them. Suddenly, Revereo lets out a massive sneeze that completely kills the mood, leaving him red-faced and apologizing like crazy. Elaine just laughs it off with a smile, telling him that his burning passion to learn is all that really counts. She quickly shifts gears back to magic theory, putting Reverio on the spot to explain exactly how power is released. Reverio starts sweating bullets, tripping over his words as he tries to break down the difference between special and normal attributes. He realizes that normal magic is way easier to cast, finally understanding why their class has been stuck in the dark until this moment. Elaine nods in approval but drops a bombshell. This limitation is nothing more than a temporary hurdle. She introduces her son Sikart as her assistant, but the poor guy realizes he completely forgot his wand. Irina hurls a wand through the air, and Sieg snatches it out of the sky with effortless grace. The entire class gasps at his insane reflexes, but Irina just scoffs, calling his catch pathetic and lazy. Sieg raises the wand high, explaining that all they need to do is flood the device with their raw magical power. A massive pillar of fire erupts as he explains how the wand converts their energy into a pure elemental strike. Elaine barks the order to begin, telling the students to focus every ounce of their being on the flow of magic. Revereo grips his wand until his knuckles turn white, panic surging through him as his magic refuses to budge. Elaine rushes over to comfort the trembling boy, reminding him that failure is just the first step toward power. Cheers explode around the room as the others succeed, leaving Reverio fuming as his magic stays trapped deep inside. Suddenly, a tiny spark flickers at the tip of his wand, making Marina gasp in absolute shock. Irina beams with pride at his success, while Elaine marvels at the student's lightning-fast progress. A nervous classmate approaches Sikart, timidly asking the noble heir for some extra pointers. Seed flashes a bright thumbs up, stoked to help his friend master the new technique. The students go into overdrive, training until they collapse and bonding over massive meals in the mess hall. Days later, a huge crowd gathers outside, desperate to see Sieg perform his magic one more time. A skeptic sneers from the shadows, muttering that all their effort is a total waste of time. Blood glares at the group, but his cold heart starts to waver as he watches them prepare. His jaw hits the floor as he witnesses the impossible unfold right before his eyes. Sieghart and his crew unleash a massive, synchronized firestorm that silences every single hater. The crowd whispers in pure shock, remembering these were the same weaklings from just a few days ago. Elaine beams with pride, knowing the wands were just a boost. Their insane progress came from pure, relentless grind. Blood stares at the wand as the truth hits him. It's just a simple tool to help him unleash his inner power. He cuts right through his classmates' petty accusations, demanding to know why they're so obsessed with hating on the special class. Blatt fires back that mastering this in just a few days is undeniable proof of their raw, natural talent. He looks back at his own struggle, remembering how it took him an entire year just to feel his power, let alone control it. His friend hangs his head in shame, admitting they said some truly disgusting things to those special class students. Blood nods in agreement, knowing those kids have finally proven they belong at this academy. The group decides to hunt them down and apologize immediately, desperate to make things right before it's too late. As they walk, his friend brings up the real painful reason why Blood was so incredibly pissed off. They realize his rage was fueled by the tragic, haunting memory of what happened to his little brother, Ray. We flash back to a freezing, snowy day where a young Blute screams at his battered brother to get up and keep fighting. He ruthlessly barks at Radat that he'll never protect the North if he stays this weak. Radat claws his way out of the snow, desperate to live up to his older brother's crushing expectations. The memory shifts to the brothers studying deep into the night, pushing their limits until they can barely keep their eyes open. They stand before the academy gates on the morning of the exam, promising to conquer this challenge together. Blatt watches his brother unleash his magic during the practical, convinced that Radat has done more than enough to pass. The results are finally posted, and the brothers scan the list with their hearts hammering against their ribs. Blatt finds his own name, but terror sets in when he realizes Radet's name is nowhere to be found. Radat forces a painful smile to congratulate his brother, desperately trying to hide the soul-crushing devastation in his eyes. Blatt stands there in a paralyzed silence, unable to grasp how his hard-working brother could possibly be rejected. Blatt catches wind of a scandalous rumor. A group of elite students bypass the entrance exam entirely. This injustice rots his soul, transforming his disappointment into a scorching hatred for those cheaters. Back in the present, Blatt reveals that out of 2 candidates from House Chloro, he was the only one who survived the cut. He white-knuckles his fist, admitting he tried to swallow the pain because he knew Radat still had flaws. But his rage boils over as he screams that his brother was a real mage, unlike those talentless frauds. He confesses that the sheer unfairness of magicless kids getting in through favoritism is what finally snapped his mind. Elaine steps in, explaining that for Takuma children, raw emotion and crushing stress are the keys that unlock their power. She warns that while feelings ignite the spark, too much pressure will cause them to lose control and go berserk. Shifting gears, Elaine asks if he's heard the legends of the Lizga Kingdom's ruined capital from 2 centuries ago. She drops a bombshell. In a single horrific night, the entire capital was annihilated and poisoned by raw magical energy. Blutz stands frozen in terror as the crushing weight of the special student's burden finally sinks in. Cold sweat drenches Blutz as he realizes his reckless ego almost got his classmates killed. He mutters a curse, knowing he has to swallow his pride and apologize, even if it's a total drag. Elaine watches him closely, remembering how he and his brother crushed the Northern War she secretly started. She knows that even if chaos reigned, that one mysterious girl makes the future impossible to change. Elaine breaks it down. Special mages thrive on chaos, but normal kids need peace to unlock their true potential. Blutz just stares back with a totally blank look, his brain completely fried by all that magic talk. Elaine confesses that his brother's failure was a letdown, but training at home is exactly what he needs right now. She promises that his brother will return next year as an absolute beast, lighting a fire in Blood's soul. Elaine shoots him a challenging smirk, telling Bluth he better be a senior worth looking up to by the time his brother returns. Blut snaps to attention and roars his agreement, his spirit ignited and ready to crush her expectations. He storms over to apologize, but his fiery temper ignites a brand new shouting match, while Seakhart desperately tries to play peacemaker. Our former villainess played those kids like a fiddle to force their growth, and now the adults are relaxing over a calm cup of tea. Corinne is blown away by Madame Fallon's masterful control, but Elaine just shrugs it off as nothing more than a playground spat. The mood turns cold as they tackle the real threat. A snake in the grass is spreading lies that the special class cheated their way to the top. Corinne realizes this sabotage is coming from the outside and hails Elaine's genius for building a class that can shatter this prejudice. Elaine just offers a humble smile, claiming she doesn't have the godlike foresight of a certain mysterious friend. She pours out her thanks to the headmistress, making it clear that their victory wouldn't be possible without her support. When Elaine coldly remarks that manipulation is just part of being a noble, the headmistress snaps and tells her to quit intimidating everyone. 3 years flash by, and Elaine stands tall with her elite students who have transformed into incredibly powerful mages. Sieg and Blood are tearing through the academy halls, racing against time to snag those legendary Rindwiches before they're gone. Sieg is raving about how incredible the food is, but a sharp voice suddenly cuts through the air and freezes them in their tracks. Elaine towers over the petrified duo, fixing her book with a chilling gaze as she demands to know if they realize what they've done. The boys hang their heads in total shame, stuttering out a pathetic apology for acting like wild kids in the hallway. They timidly confess that their hunger blinded them, making them completely oblivious to everything around them. Elaine lets out a heavy sigh and accepts their plea, but warns Sieg and Blood that they better watch their step from now on. She scolds them, explaining that this hall is right by the faculty building and crawling with professors who hate being bumped into. With a dismissive wave, she mentions there might be some scraps left if they hurry, sending the boys bolting like lightning. Irina is gasping for air as she tries to keep up, whining that Sieghart's walking speed is absolutely insane. As they finally sit down, Irina watches the boys inhale their food and sighs that men are just completely hopeless. Over the years, those special attribute kids blended into normal classes perfectly, without a single soul causing trouble. With Istward finally waking up, the Academy decides it's time to take this revolution to the rest of the world. Back in the office, Elaine realizes Curine is hinting at a top-secret mission waiting for her across the border. Curine praises Elaine's razor-sharp instincts and admits she has a massive favor to ask the Duchess. The elf tasks Elaine with a high-stakes visit to the theocracy as the Academy's official representative. Elaine demands the details while haunting memories of the Holy Nation's grim rituals flash through her mind. Curien insists Elaine is the only one for the job because she knows the inner workings of the theocracy better than anyone. It turns out Elaine comes from a legendary bloodline of saintesses and was once a top candidate for the title herself. Elaine forces a bitter smile, brushing it off as ancient history since that holy power never actually awakened inside her. A heavy silence fills the room as the crushing weight of her past failure hangs in the air. Elaine rubs her temples, shocked to realize she's still harboring a bitter grudge over that old rejection. Kiran offers a quick apology for being blunt before pivoting straight back to the crisis surrounding the current saintess. She reveals a family tree, showing that the saintess, Lady Sylvie, is actually Elaine's cousin, and she has a 7-year-old daughter. All eyes are on young Lady Anna, the girl everyone expects to inherit her mother's divine mantle. Kirain explains that while the title isn't strictly inherited, only those gifted with the power of purification can ever ascend. Since this holy energy only flows through specific bloodlines, it's incredibly common for the title to pass from mother to child. Curine confirms the rumors. Lady Anna was born with the gift of purification, making her the perfect candidate. But terrifying reports claim the girl is manifesting a strange new power that is definitely not purification. The church is in a total panic, fearing their next saintess is flawed and demanding an immediate investigation. Elaine looks her in the eye, asking if this mysterious new power is the real reason Curine came looking for her. Curine confirms the rumors, declaring Elaine the ultimate master of special magic and demanding a private lecture. Elaine realizes instantly that this situation is going to be a total disaster for Sylvie and Olga. She doesn't feel a shred of pity. In fact, she's actually savoring their misfortune just a little bit. Remembering a woman named Lily, Elaine realizes infiltrating the holy theocracy is the perfect chance to advance her own secret agenda. With a look of ironclad determination, Elaine officially accepts the high-stakes assignment. Curine offers her thanks but drops a heavy warning. This mission must remain top secret. She orders Elaine to sneak into the country by posing as a chaperone for the incoming exchange students. Elaine agrees immediately, knowing a fake cultural exchange is the flawless cover story she needs. Curine reveals the hand-picked squad for the mission: Seek Heart, Blood, and Irina. Elaine is absolutely stunned, shouting that those are the very children she's supposed to be protecting. Crean stands by the decision, insisting these elites are the absolute peak of their class. But there's one more surprise addition to the squad: the one and only Marina Klatt. Elaine is baffled, demanding to know why a girl with such trash exam scores is even here. Curie counters that while her grades are a disaster, Marina's practical talent is second to none. She argues that Marina's grit as a commoner is the secret weapon they need for this exchange. We cut to the breathtaking holy capital of Utopia, where young Anna is kneeling in silence. With her hands tightly clasped, Anna offers a desperate prayer to the Holy Mother above. She pleads for the divine to keep a protective eye over every soul on this earth. She begs for the safety of the sacred sanctuaries hidden throughout the land. Channeling the power of purification, she prays for all darkness and corruption to be purged. A blinding flash erupts as the ritual ends, proving the prayer was a massive success. The crowd goes wild for Lady Sylvie, thanking her for keeping them safe from monsters for another year. Sylvie turns to Anna and tells her to watch closely, because she's the one who will purify this place next. Anna feels a surge of holy energy and silently vows to step up when her time finally comes. An attendant heaps praise on Anna, declaring the kingdom's future is set with such a perfect successor. He reassures her that the power sleeping inside her will definitely awaken when the moment is right. But on the inside, Anna rejects everything they say, knowing it's all a total lie. She stares blankly ahead, fully aware that the religious dogma they're preaching is a complete sham. Even as she recites the Holy Scriptures, her inner thoughts are drowning in pure cynicism. Anna wears a sad, hollow smile, admitting that while a saintess needs faith, the biggest liar of all is her. The gang finally steps into the holy capital of Utopia, and they're blown away by how much older it looks than their own royal city. The kids' eyes light up instantly as they spot a shop selling bizarre rock candy they've never seen before. Irina lets out a heavy sigh, complaining that the boys are being way too loud and totally embarrassing. Caught red-handed staring, a flustered Irina panics and insists she's just studying the local culture. Elaine lays down the law, reminding everyone they're exchange students representing the pride of Eastward. Suddenly, a voice booms from a nearby stall, jokingly asking if the kid wants to ditch the noble life for the path of a free adventurer. A towering man in clerical robes steps forward, giving Duchess Fallens a grand welcome to the holy capital. He introduces himself as Hamdan Jazal, revealing his high-ranking status as a cardinal of the Holy Church. Hamdan flashes a warm smile at the kids, seeing them as the very legends who hold the future of Eastward in their hands. He smirks at their shocked faces, proudly explaining that he's the first cardinal in history to ever come from the south. Hamdan signals the group to follow, warning them that they've got quite a journey ahead. He reveals they'll be living in dorms like ordinary students for the next month before asking Lady Elaine to drop some knowledge on them. Hamdan breaks down the theocracy's power structure, where the Holy Pontiff and the Saintess rule side by side. He explains that the Saintess must stabilize the entire world through her holy pilgrimages and the sheer force of her purification. Meanwhile, the Holy Pontiff commands the nation, acting as the ultimate pillar of faith for the entire continent. Hamdan reveals that the elite council of cardinals is strictly limited to just 6 incredibly powerful individuals. And here's the kicker: the Holy Pontiff is always hand-picked from that exclusive circle of 6. He brushes off the heavy politics with a laugh, joking that young people shouldn't lose sleep over such boring stuff. Hamdan sheepishly confesses that as a rookie cardinal, he's drowning in paperwork and still hasn't mastered the ropes. Elaine sees right through him, questioning why such a busy man would waste his precious time greeting mere exchange students. Hamdan admits he was just dying to meet the woman who actually managed to charm the legendary headmaster Curing. Elaine's eyes widen as she asks if he's actually close with their mysterious shut-in headmaster. Hamdan lets out a hearty laugh, revealing he was once a southern warrior under her command and owes his entire career to her. Sieg's face lights up as he begs for any information on the legendary Lion of the South. Hamdan chuckles and shakes his head, but Sieg immediately brags that he's got a close friend among the powerful lionkin down south. Hamdan cuts the conversation short, announcing they've finally reached their destination. The entire group stands frozen in awe, staring up at the colossal, breathtaking towers of the Holy Ark Academy. Suddenly, Hamdan freezes and scratches his head in confusion. He's completely lost and has no idea which way they even came from. Elaine lets out a heavy sigh at his terrible sense of direction and demands a map before they wander aimlessly forever. Elaine narrows her eyes at a figure in the distance, wondering if that's the mysterious man who ordered this mission. Hamdan drops a bombshell, revealing that this massive gate is actually a deadly labyrinth hidden right on campus. He explains that Holy Ark Academy doesn't play around, baking brutal labyrinth trials directly into their curriculum. Sieghart realizes the seniors are fighting for their lives in there right now, and he's absolutely floored by the sheer scale of the facility. The massive doors groan open to reveal absolute carnage, catching even the veteran guards off guard. Inside, terrified students scream for their vanguard to hold the line as a swarm of monsters crashes against their shields. A colossal serpent slams into the defense, shattering their formation as a student shrieks that he's reached his limit. While the students descend into pure panic, Hamden and Elaine just watch the slaughter with cold, twisted amusement. Refusing to back down, one student demands a physical buff and lunges back into the bloodbath with a roar. Hamden watches the struggle and coldly asks Squad 12 if they're finally ready to throw in the towel. A student lashes out in a fury, screaming that he won't quit because his entire grade is on the line. The headmaster admits they've got spirit, but warns that if they're pushed back to the entrance, it's an instant fail. Elaine insists they still have room to fight, but the headmaster's face says he doesn't believe a word of it. Suddenly, a colossal slime swallows the students whole, forcing the headmaster to call the match right then and there. With a heavy sigh, the headmaster steps onto the battlefield to clean up this absolute disaster. He launches a devastating stone javelin that obliterates the monsters with a thunderous roar. Elaine effortlessly takes the other flank, vaporizing giant monsters with a casual flick of her wrist. Seeing the biggest threats are gone, the headmaster drags the broken students away from the front lines. He sets his sights on the remaining weaklings, ready to wipe them off the map and secure the area. He readies a massive sword swing, shouting that he's ending this entire fight in a single blow. Hamdan screams in pure terror, begging the headmaster to stop before he destroys the priceless labyrinth. The chaos grinds to a screeching halt as a flash of blinding light explodes through the room, leaving everyone stunned. A massive pillar of divine energy crashes down from the heavens as a voice chants a high-tier purification spell. Floating down through the radiance is Saintess Sylvie herself, flashing a calm smile at her cousin, Elaine. Elaine glares back with ice in her eyes, instantly recognizing the Saintess as Sylvie.